Hello and welcome everybody to our 2025 WHL Draft coverage. We're going to walk you through each pick that's tonight and then all day tomorrow. We're going to go through the U.S. Draft, the Canadian Draft. We're joined today by Nick Earl, who runs the show at Neutral Zone. He's the director of hockey ops. Also scouts all throughout Western Canada, and Jeff McCarthy, who's our BC scout, but also does a lot of crossover and covers the whole region. These guys are going to have intel on every one of the picks. We'll have some Americans on tomorrow to start the day off with the U.S. draft, and then these guys will jump back on and cover the rest. So as we start here, we'll wait for Regina to take their first pick. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of suspense on that pick. What are you guys expecting to see tonight?
Maddox Schultz is a pretty easy slam dunk pick. There hasn't been many years where it's this easy at number one. And it's also really nice for him and for his family as he's going to get to stay home and play for his hometown team. So he's going to play 34 games next year for the Pats. And then he's going to play the rest of the time with the Regina Pats Canadians U18 AAA team.
Yeah, and I think with him especially, we were really close to having him at a 5-star. Like, this is a player that we think is a legitimate franchise guy. He will be a franchise guy for the Regina Pats, but he's also going to be a contender for first overall pick in his draft year, right? We had Landon DuPont last year. I would say he's a lot closer to DuPont than a lot of our other 4.75s last year. We have him at a high 4.75, which is about as high as you can be before you get to a 5-star when Landon DuPont. So this is a player that just exceptional in every single aspect of the game. He's MVP, leads the league in scoring in the U18 level, and not a lot of bad things to say, and not a lot of flaws in his game in general. So
yeah, and I think he's going to be a lock at number one for 2028, barring someone coming out of nowhere or something happening like an injury or something like that. He really plays an elite two-way game. I saw him at the Sask Top 80 event, and it was one of those where after the first period, it's like, okay, you can go sit down. Let's let everyone else play. So the first shift at that event, he went flying up the right wall. Some kid tried to throw a hit on him. He dodged the hit, like just slipped up the wall through the contact. And I can't remember if he scored. I think he actually put it off the post. But it was one of those where it was like, okay, guys, I am Maddox Schultz. I'm the best player here, and everyone needs to respect me. And he dominated that event. And I think there was a chance every single time he was on the ice. He's physically stronger than most players his age. He's not the tallest kid in the world. I think he's only 5'10", but he hits like a truck, which honestly, elite level players always hit hard. It's a kind of a weird thing. I think it's something to do with their balance and their skating and just how good they are. And then he also has elite level vision. There was a play I saw where there was a gap in between defenders for a high to low cross ice pass that was maybe a foot wide. And he identified the gap and expected the defenseman to hit the pass. I don't think the kid hit the pass or saw it, but it was one of those where it's like you're seeing a kid who's processing the game at a level so far beyond his own peers. And one of the things people always say too about U18 players coming back and playing with their peers is it can be hard to come back to that level. And he had no issues. He was working really well with guys he'd never played for, guys who weren't up to his speed. And he's just someone who is so far ahead of the curve. So I was talking to Ian Moran, who runs our NHL group, and I was asking for input on whether or not we should put him at a 5-star. And I said, I don't know if you've seen him, but he's kind of like a Crosby or he's like a Bergeron. And Ian's comment was, well, he's got more offense than a Bergeron, so I'd say he's closer to a Crosby, which no pressure, Maddox, but you're already better than the Hall of Famer, apparently. Or you got more offense than the Hall of Famer. So, yeah, he's a heck of a player. So we really look forward to seeing him play next year in the WHL.
Yeah, I mean, he's got nothing to prove.
What do you think of the landing spot for Regina? Do you think that's a good spot for him to land?
It's perfect. I said, he's going to play 34 games. He's going to sleep in his own bed. He's going to eat the food he's been eating for the last 14 years. He's going to go to the same school, and he'll get to practice with the team as well. Like, honestly, it was a perfect spot.
Yeah, no complaints there. I'm just watching the live show. I think they just announced Schultz as the pick, so should be a great fit. That Regina Pat Canadians team, they won the Palace Cup this year, out in
And
Chilliwack,
he won
and
MVP.
yeah, OT winner, MVP. I think he scored 30 seconds into the game or something, or into overtime. Sorry. Not a lot of flaws in this game there, so gonna be an interesting year for him. Especially playing U18. I mean, that's for him to want to stay close to home is fantastic. I think that says a lot about him as a person and his character. It's pretty easy to go play somewhere else or and whatnot, but him staying close to home and really honing in on his development is going to be really big for him. So
Now, how big is the drop off between Schultz, who's a special player, and the next wave?
It's big. Like we said,
yeah,
he's a high 4.75. So Brendan, why don't you, just while we're waiting for this pick, why don't you tell people what our star rating system is and what it means?
Yeah, sure. So we do it on a 1 through 5 basis. We break it up into quarter stars to really differentiate. We don't want to just say this is a first round grade, this is a second round grade. The way that they do it in a lot of the CHL and the NHL central scouting, we want to get into the real details of how good are these players against their peers. We do it by birth year. So a 4.75 15-year-old is not going to be as good as probably a 4.25 20-year-old. The most accurate way you can do it is pair it in that player's specific birth year. And we compare it to everyone in North America. So it's not just, are you the best kid in British Columbia? Are you the best kid in Minnesota? It's how do you stack up against all the players across North America? And when you get into your NHL year, it's even through Europe as well. So a 5-star for us is a generational type player. It's a Connor McDavid. It's a Sidney Crosby. So we're always pretty reluctant to give that. I think Schultz probably deserves it, but there's no rush on our end to give it. So we'll wait. We don't need to put that pressure on him. Celebrini was a 5-star. Owen Power was a 5-star. Most recently, Landon DuPont, Cale Makar. So it's been a pretty good track record of 5 stars. We've never downgraded a 5-star in our history.
And I'm hearing a lot of Western Canadian names there too.
Yeah, for sure, Nick. So then you start getting into kind of the 4.75 is likely like a first-round NHL pick, typically. Sometimes you might have a kid who's a little undersized. He's a 4.75 in the CHL, but his game might not, project to the NHL game. Then, the 4.5s, 4.25s are immediate impact guys at the CHL level, the NCAA level. And then once you get into the 4s, now you're getting into, might take 6 months, might take a season, but is going to be an impact guy, could be a captain. And 3.75s are typically kids who are good enough to play in the Western League, but they're not going to play at 16. They're probably going to play at 17 or 18, and they're going to have to climb the lineup. And a 3.5 is like a bubble kid. He might not quite be there yet, but he's got upside to get there eventually. So, and, we're dealing with bantams in this draft. So a kid that might be a 3.25 today might end up being a 4.5. And there's kids that we've seen in our history of doing this that are first-round WHL draft picks that don't pan out, don't get drafted in the NHL, don't really pan out at all. So you're dealing with a really young age here. So take everything kind of with a grain of salt, but.
So Maddox Schultz has been officially announced as the number 1 overall pick. I don't think a single person with an internet connection is surprised by that. But we gave out a bunch of 4.75s with the 09 group. We gave it to Aiden Bouchard, Blake Chorney, Brock England, Eli McCamey, and then it was a 5 for DuPont. So putting into perspective how good of a year it was last year. So Blake Chorney, who we ranked 3rd overall, and we all absolutely loved, he actually slipped to 10th overall to the Vancouver Giants, who would have been very excited about that one. And so Blake got outscored by Maddox Schultz this year at the U18 level. So this is how high of a 4.75 he is. Like we were joking, he's like a 4.9 star or 4.95 star. So it's going to be one of those. I think you're going to see him at the not the BC Cup, the WHL Cup in the fall, which is a super fun event. And I think he could just absolutely control that event. And I think that's probably going to be when he gets bumped up to a 5-star, because I think he's going to be very good next year.
Yeah, now the fun starts after Maddox Schultz. Edmonton Oil Kings have the 2nd overall pick, and I couldn't tell you what they're going to do. Like, there is a lot of different ways they can go about this for sure.
So based on my discussions with people and based on just some intuition, I got no idea what they're going to do here. They've taken forwards the last few rounds, last few years. So in 2023, they took Caden Stroder, who is excellent. He's out of the Humboldt Broncos program. Can't remember where he played U18 this year, just off the top of my head. But he was excellent in limited action for the Oil Kings this year. Like I think he played close to 10 games, I think, and was like near a point a game, like 0.75 points a game. The year before, they took Joe McGinley, who...
Oh, they did it. Holden Waters, 2nd overall.
Holden Waters, we're 2 for 2.
2 for 2. Yep.
There we go.
This is an elite, late 2010 birthday. Does it all, really. I mean, this is a player that just in general just makes such an impact in all ends of the ice. He's 6'4", 190, right-handed shot. Can play on your power play, penalty kill. Can play 30 minutes a night. And the crazy part is with him is just he's a late 2010, so he's going to have an extra year development in the Western Hockey League. Yeah, December 2010. So he played last year at the St. George's as well. And he was one of their best defensemen there, along with Brock Cripps. And he was probably, 12, 13 years old at that time. Like, that's insane. So he's a very special player. We had him ranked 2, and a lot of people had some stuff to say about that. But I think Nick and I had a good argument about who should put it to. And I think at the BC Cup, when we saw him there, it was a no-brainer. He can do literally everything on the ice. So
I would say the CSSHL Prep Championships was like, okay, I think this is the guy. And then at the BC Cup, it was like, yeah, this is the guy. So to put into perspective, St. George's was absolutely terrible at the Prep Championships. They were one of the top ranked teams, and did they win? Did they go 1-2 or did they go 0-3? I can't remember.
They went. Anyways, they lost 2 games and then they won.
Then they were in the consolation game or whatever it's called on them in the morning. But you know what? They're 14, 15 years old. You can't be on your A game every single day, and that's the joy of youth sports, right? We see that at the NCAA March Madness every year. You see upsets. You see it. That's one of the joys of the CHL, the World Juniors. So when you make the kids even younger, then you see even more drastic swings. But Holden was probably the only kid who I'd say elevated his grade or elevated his stock at that event. Like he did everything for them. And a name who is in talks to go in the top 5, top 10 for next year's draft is Keaton Veerhoff out of Victoria. And I would say Holden Wouters is Keaton Veerhoff 2.0. I would expect a very similar start to his career, the way that Keaton's exploded into the league. And yeah, this is a great get for Edmonton. So one of the things is they've currently have Blake Fiddler as their big right shot defenseman. I think that Holden has more offensive ability than Blake Fiddler. And I honestly think he's better defensively. So it's going to be one of those where you're going to see Blake go in the first 2 rounds of this year's NHL draft. So he's got 2 more years of eligibility. So they won't play together next year, but it's going to be a 4th year mentoring a first year. So I think that's going to be a really good situation for them. And then he's going to hand the baton over to Holden, and he's going to man the blue line from there.
Yep, second year in a row where a right-handed shot from St. George's on the back end go second overall. So
There you
they
go.
do a great job there at St. George's. They have a couple of very good players. We're going to see a couple names potentially here, including a couple goaltenders, which we'll talk about throughout. This is a fantastic year for goaltenders as well. If you're a team right now, you want to get a big defenseman, and there's a lot of them available. And then also you got to cruise. Oh, there's a trade to announce here. Looks like
That's not
Kelowna might.
surprising. Who's
Yeah,
it?
Kelowna, third
No, I know, but
pick.
who are they trading to?
I have no idea. I have the video unmuted, so I just the commissioner's speaking right now, so I'm assuming it's going to be a long while because that third overall pick's
It's going to
going to be very
Seattle.
valuable. Seattle.
I'm calling it Seattle, and they're going to step up and
Oh, I
take
thought you
Liam
meant.
Pugh.
Oh,
No, I haven't seen it. That's what I'm calling.
I said Lakovic to Moose from Moose Jaw,
Oh, that'd be
and it is
interesting.
Kelowna. There you go. Look at this guy. Hey.
Sorry, it was Seattle.
Oh, sorry. No, it's Regina.
Oh, Regina traded up.
Yeah,
Wow.
interesting. So they might go. They might get
They
a
could go
nice little
Pugh.
1-2. They can get a nice little 1-2 tandem. So it
If
looks
they
like a
go,
third.
if they go Pugh, that would be unbelievable because Liam Pugh's the best shooter in the draft. We've got him ranked 6 on our board because there's elements to his game that, and we just think there's some other players who are more well-rounded. But if you could have Schultz and Pugh playing together, Schultz go get the puck and Pugh score. Oh my goodness, that would be deadly.
Yeah, so it looks like they traded the 26th pick and then the 2026 first and 2027 first. So,
Wow.
I mean, I'm not going to lie, maybe expected a little bit more for that, but if there's a potential of them getting Liam Pugh, that is,
I would actually say that that's a ton because the 2026 draft for next season is going to be unbelievable.
yeah,
The number of games we were at where we're like, holy, who's this? And then it's like, oh, he's a 2011.
yeah,
Like Madden Deneau was the best player in Alberta this year at the AHL U15 AAA level. So he's going to probably be the first one off the board. And then the player from Yale,
Parker McMillan.
McMillan is
Yeah,
another massive one. And then
I,
there's
I love that kid at the John Reed. I was like, guys, you're missing this guy in the midterm list. And then someone said, no, he's
yeah,
in 2011. I said, oh, okay.
Yeah.
he was their best player for most of the season. Christopher Kokoris off that team stepped it up in the second half, but McMillan was the driving force on that team and offensively.
yeah, there's not a lot to not like there. I mean, we're talking about Parker McMillan, but yeah, he's debatably 6 foot, lethal shot. We're going to see his name early for sure. But Christopher Kokoris, again, I guarantee we'll hear his name today. I have heard a lot of things.
I think every
Yeah,
single team at the BC Cup was trying to talk to him.
yeah, and he is a legitimate 6'5",
And they were
6'6".
all talking to him like this.
Yeah, yeah, he's a big kid. So
he's 6'6" at what is he? Has he turned 15 yet?
I
And
think
keep
so.
him
I think he's a
and keep
January bird.
and keep in mind he's mobile.
Yeah,
And he wasn't even the biggest kid there.
no,
The Thompson Blazers defenseman,
Carter McKenzie. Yeah,
yeah,
6'7".
6'7" and mobile as well.
Yeah,
Do we have any information on who the trade was and the pick? And
yeah, they're taking their time with this, so I'm assuming.
sorry, can you just say
Regina.
again who it was? It was Regina gave up.
So they gave up 26th overall this year, and then the next 2 first-round picks for third overall, which is yeah, again, 2026 is going to be a very good year. So there's a very good chance that Kelowna might get a very good player at that area. But they're on a Mem Cup run right now. They just got Carson Wetch from the Calgary Hitmen. That's a very good piece. They're going to be
Yeah,
looking to get some pieces. Kelowna had a bit of an underwhelming season this year on their standards. Tisha Ginla got injured.
and then they just started dealing everyone. They pulled off, in my opinion, a heck of a trade with Lethbridge when they dealt Caden Price and the defenseman they got from Lethbridge,
Will Sharp.
Will Sharp. Thank you. Sorry, I'm really struggling with my names right now. Apparently, I would have done the trade Will Sharp for Caden Price straight up, and they got a bunch of picks in back. So I think what you're going to see is this 26 or the 2026 first rounder, they're not going to keep
They
that.
took Pew, third overall.
Third overall, that is impressive. So they got the two most dynamic offensive forwards Regina just got. So Pew was 6 on our board. But like I said, his offensive abilities are very impressive. And he could be the best goal scorer in this draft. He scored 30 goals in, I think, 28 games at the JPHL 18U level, playing against kids who are significantly older than him. So if he's got Maddox Schultz getting him the puck, I think he's going to score a ton of goals at this level. And that's going to be one line to watch when they're 16 years old. That's going to be the line you're going to have to line match against, is the 16-year-olds.
Yeah.
Will they play together, Nick? Aren't they both centers?
Pew's a winger. He plays center, but he's a winger. Like it's so my critique on Liam Pugh was that he doesn't move his feet enough off puck. So it's one of those where you watch him on the power play where he stands up at the line, he makes the pass, and then he kind of watches the guy with the puck. And then it's almost like his controller disconnects. And then once he gets the puck back, the controller reconnects and he starts dipsy doodling. So it's going to be one of those where if he can work on finding space off puck, getting to the soft areas, then Schultz is going to find him. And the two of them, honestly, the only issue for Regina is Maddox Schultz isn't going to be around after 2028. He'll be in the NHL. So it's one of those where it's going to be kind of tough to peak for this age group if you're going for a WHL championship run. But the time they're going to have of them is going to be really, really fun. And if you're a Pats fan, get ready for a lot of goals.
Yeah, that'll be a fun place to go watch two very good offensive players. Probably the two, in my opinion, those two are without a doubt two of the most skilled players in regard to their. I think they play a bit of different games. Pew, I would say, is a little bit more of a sniper. Maddox Schultz can really do anything. So,
but I think their games are going to complement each other, though.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like you can't have two snipers, right? Like you've got to have the guy who can go and get the puck, and that's Maddox Schultz to me. And I think Pew's going to just have to work on getting open. He's got an absolute cannon, and so it's going to be fun for them. And then Penticton at 4 is going to be an interesting pick too. This will be the first pick in franchise history. So they just had the expansion draft today, and there were a bunch of names who got selected. The one that really interested me was Easton LaPlante from Calgary, who just got dealt to them. We had him in the second round for the 2023 draft, and that's roughly where he went. I think he went in the late 20s. And he's a guy who's a real throwback WHL defenseman. Like he hits like a truck. He moves really well. He's strong. He's going to play a really good two-way game. So I think that's a guy they're going to end up building their franchise around for the foreseeable future. I was surprised he didn't step into the WHL this year, but he would have gotten really good reps at the U18 level, and I think he's been an even better player as a result.
Yeah, I mean, Calgary was a very good team this year. They got Sawyer Mignot. They got a couple of pretty good defensemen back there to add. So it looks like, they're going to be an interesting team to watch. I think, for Penticton, you want to make a big splash at the draft, especially when you have your first pick. You want somebody that's going to be able to come in and do a lot for them. So with Pew off the board, I'm going to be honest, I have no clue what they're going to do. So there's a lot of really good defensemen available. Still, I mean, you got a couple of NAX players. You got Cash Elke, who Nick is very high of on Humboldt. And then, I mean, in the later area, he's going to be a very interesting player. I've only seen him one time, and in November. Nick would be the one to comment on him. But yeah, a lot of different ways they can go here. But yeah, Penticton, it's an interesting one. I'm very confident in Fred Harbinson there. I think he does an excellent job. He's done Penticton Vees are a historic franchise in the BCHL. They have some of the best junior teams ever. I mean, they had 1 year, I don't remember. I think it was and it was in the early 2010s where they only lost 2 games the entire year. That had a team of Troy Stetcher, Tyson Jost, Dante Fabro, a lot of really Ray Ferraro's an NHL alumni, Brett Hull, like
I remember seeing that team. Yeah.
So Penticton hosts
All
the
Korea.
CS. Yeah, Andy Moog. So Penticton hosts the CSSHL championships. So we get to go there, and it's an unbelievable spot. So they've got the Memorial Arena, which is like a museum. It's beautiful. Were they the 52 or the 53 world champs, the Penticton Vees, Jeff?
oh, you're asking the wrong guy. I'm not going that far
So,
back.
anyways, so I'm pretty sure it was. I think 52 they might have won the Allen Cup, and then 53 they won over and they won the World Championships. So they've got it's a really cool barn, and it's preserved to I think the way it looked in the 50s, and it's part museum. So those are really fun games to watch. And then where the V's play is probably 5,500 seat rink, and it is gorgeous. You've got the BC Hall of Fame in there, or Hockey Hall of Fame in there, and yeah, they've got the banners up, and most CHL teams can't compete with the alumnus. Like we were listing them off there, like Andy Moog, Paul Correa, Ray Ferraro, like that's really tough to beat. So it's going to be a really fun situation with Penticton coming into the league, and it's going to be one of the premier organizations and one of the premier destinations for players.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's going to be a bit of a challenge at first because, in the BCHL, you're allowed to recruit from different areas. There's no draft or anything to
Bradley Nadeau comes to mind, and his brother Josh. Bradley's having a pretty good time in the AHL.
He'll be in the NHL pretty quick. So Fred Harbinson and that Penticton Vees, they have a very easy time getting players to come play for them. You're thinking about Zach Nyman, I believe his name is, from Ontario.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would play for the Vees this year. And then you had Eli McCamey, who we had second last year. The reason why he fell to Victoria in the second round was because he was going to go the college route, and he was committed to North Dakota. And then when did they announce the merger there? Like 3 months ago? Yeah,
something
so
like
it's a very different way of things, going to be different. It's just, yeah, I mean, I don't know what his plans are. I don't know. But Penticton's a fantastic BCHL organization. They're kind of like the prime example of the BCHL. They represent that league so well. So
every league kind of has a flagship team. Like in the AJ before they moved to the BCHL was Brooks. You had Penticton in the BCHL. I'm trying to think of, like in the OHL, for example, you got London Knights, and it's the same thing. Like you can say Penticton Vees in the same breath as any of the premier CHL programs. And you know what? Hey kid, do you want to come live in the most beautiful place in the world? And it's a nice temperature year round. The busing will be great. Kelowna's not far. Kamloops isn't far. Like it's gonna be a great spot.
Yeah, beautiful town too. They have a really passionate fan base. Yeah, I have family in Penticton.
What do you guys think in terms of, obviously they don't have a team.
Looks like Brendan's cutting out there.
All right. Oh, Brendan, you froze there.
Oh.
No, sorry guys.
There you are.
I was going to say, obviously they don't have a team like you can't look at the V's in the same breath as the other Western League teams right now because this is their first year. But in terms of who's available and what you think, I mean, who are you looking at here as a couple potential guys that could go here?
So I think it depends on how you want to build your team. Like I said, Easton LaPlante could be a guy who they build that defensive unit around. He's a right shot guy. So you could go with Nolan Walitsky, who's a left shot defenseman. He's ranked third on our board. If you want to go more small and skilled and a guy who's going to run your power play for you, that would be a Cruz Jim. And then if you want to go for some size and skill up top, I would say I would be going Cash Elke. That's my guy. But you could also see Reed Nickel go. But I do see Reed Nickel as more of a winger, whereas Elke's the center.
Yeah, looks like the pick's in right now. They're just announcing it. Again, I have it on mute, so I can't really see who they're going with here. But I mean, they can go in many different ways. Looks like they went at Thor Lifton.
Thor Lifton at 4th overall. That's
Yeah.
So Thor we put to 17 on our board, but we had him higher at midterms. And he's someone who the sky's the limit. That's one of those where that's an upside pick. He's a really big right shot defenseman. He's extremely mobile. He was over a point a game this year for the Calgary North Stars, which was an excellent team. He did everything for them. He was their leader. He was their captain. So yeah, I think they've probably drafted a future captain right there.
Yep, I really like this kid. When I did see him at the Rocky Mountain Classic, his dad was I think he was an NHL player, but he played professional. Like he's very well known on the island here. So this is a player that, I mean, goes to a North Stars team. You kind of just, you hear his name, you look at his size. I think he's about 6'2", 190. He's got some offensive upside. Defensively, he's very sound.
The
What are some
mobility
things that you?
the mobility is so impressive, and he moves the puck really well. I thought that Alberta Cup, he came out of the gates really hot, and he was one of the best players on the ice. And then I thought he slowed down a little bit in the later games. I thought he kind of got overshadowed by some of the other players. But like I said, this is an upside pick. Like if you're looking for someone who has pro upside, like in terms of NHL, he could be a second pairing defenseman maybe at the NHL level. It's kind of like a Holden Wouters, where he's, like you said, he's big and he does a lot of the things that you need him to do. So that should be a really good player for Penticton to build their back end around.
Yeah, I had him at the John Reed as an A+, which I only gave 3 of those the whole tournament. So long, athletic, huge ceiling, played on their power play, can settle bad passes. He's pretty stout defensively. Pretty good gap for a kid that size. Usually they struggle with that. Strong on his edges, strong on his stick, can really zip a pass. Yeah, I think this kid's got a really high ceiling.
Yeah, and it's one of those things as well where we'll have a kid higher in the midterm and then have him a bit lower in the final. And it's not because the kid got worse. It's because a lot of players got better. And that's a very common theme, especially in this draft. At the start of the year, we weren't as high on a lot of kids, but then, come camps, provincial camps, playoffs, second end, a lot of players really kind of came into their own. So it's going to be a lot of really good depth compared to what we saw earlier. And yeah, I mean, they've kind of caught up to themselves, and there's a lot of skill there. So
yeah,
we think it's going to be a pretty good.
People were really down on this group to start the year. I know a lot of scouts were pretty negative, and then I think this group, just the way they improved, like to put in perspective, I think we had 289 3.5 stars at midterms, and I think we had 487 3.5 stars at the final. So that's like it's us getting out to see kids and just getting more views. But it also goes to show how good those kids how much they improved. There were kids we had on our final list who went up a quarter grade but fell in the rankings. So that just goes to show how much this group improved. And so just a little bit more on Thor Lifton. That Calgary North Stars team was the best team in the AHL all season. They lost in the finals to a Red Deer team led by Madden Deneau, who will go likely first overall next season. But Thor was the leader of that team, especially with Ben Oliverio being out for some of it. Like I think Ben only played like 17 regular season games. So with the North Stars, Thor had 38 points in 32 games and played 4 games at the 18 level, and he had 17 points in 10 playoff games, which I guess is pretty good from the back end. So yeah, that's going to be a very good player.
Yeah, absolutely.
The
And now
only
we
the only
have
concern I'd have with a kid like Thor would be that he's a dual citizen, so he's also U.S. He's going to be one of the top, top four, certainly top 6D in the U.S. So he's going to be a target for the U.S. national team next year.
Ooh, I didn't think about that.
They've done a pretty good job of retaining some of those guys. They don't get them all. They do lose some to CHL organizations. Penticton, like Nick and Jeff have said, is one of the premier places to play. So I'm sure they had that conversation, but that's going to be a threat because NTDP is going to come calling for that kid for sure.
Yeah. Oh, and he's a December 6th birthday.
Ooh,
So
another late one.
Yeah, so the 2029 NHL draft is going to have some good defensemen coming to it. So his dad, David, he's from Windsor, was a second-round pick of Colorado in the 03 draft. Played 7 games in the NHL, scored a goal, and then he spent some time in Sweden, Italy, and in Denmark, and I think that was Hungary. Or no, sorry, that's not Hungary. That's Austria. So a really good pro career, and a lot of those kids learn how to be a pro from their parent, and the genetics aspect obviously is huge too. So, and his dad's listed at 6'3", 209.
Yeah.
So he's probably he's listed 6'1" here. So I think he's got a little bit more to go.
Yeah, very, very skilled defenseman, especially for that size. And it's going to be a common theme pretty quick here. We're going to see, I don't know, I don't want to predict anything, but we're going to see probably at least 10 more defensemen come out in the first round here.
It's going to be a lot.
This is a very good group of defensemen. And you might see a couple goaltenders as well. This is a very strong draft for goaltenders. We got a couple. How many do we have in the top 100, Nick, of our rankings
Oh, geez,
for goaltenders wise? I think close to 7 or 8, which is pretty.
It might be more than that.
Sometimes that can work against you too, because you can say, hey, I can wait for good goalies later in the draft. It kind of negatively impacts all of them.
Yeah, I described it to kind of like, I think Nick said it best, like in fantasy hockey, where where one goalie goes, you go and get a goalie as well. So that's going to be, I don't know if one of them are going to be taken in the first round. If I had to take a guess, they would, at least 1 or 2 of them, in my opinion. But yeah,
there's a bunch of teams with 2 picks in the first round. Like Edmonton's got 2 and 8. We just saw Regina's got 2. Who else? Oh, Vancouver has 2. I think Brandon has 15. No, they don't. So moral of the story is if you're a team and you've got 2 first-round picks or you've got a bunch of picks early, swinging on a goaltender could be a franchise-altering thing. Our number one ranked goaltender was Carter Gibson from NAX, who we had at 22nd overall. And then 23rd overall, we had Cole Androsov, who won U15 prep goaltender of the year with St. George's. So there's a lot of talent
cut you off there.
Sorry.
We had Everett at 5th overall with Reed Nickel.
There we go.
That is a very Everett pick, in my opinion. They have a very certain style of play, and I feel like he's going to fit in right there. That's another pick from the Kamloops trade for Owen Zellweger. Last year, they got a guy named Landon DuPont. I don't know if you've heard of him or not, but having Reed Nickel, who we had honestly a little bit low in our midterms. I know Nick and our head Western guy James went to the Manitoba POE, and I'll let him talk about Reed Nickel more.
Yeah, Reed Nickel is dominant at the Program of Excellence camp. Manitoba is the weakest province this year in terms of the talent level. So it was a little bit tough to tell just how dominant he was because he was scoring 2 to 3 goals every game. It seemed like he was dominant off the rush. So one of the things he did really well was he'd spread his feet, drop his shoulder, and protect the puck. And it was one of those where they couldn't do anything about it. And he scored 35 goals this year at the U18 level in Manitoba. His feet are a little bit of a question mark. He's a good skater, not a great skater. And you also have to factor in the fact that he's 6'1" already, 185 pounds. and he's 14, 15 years old. So it's one of those where the question becomes, is he peaked, or is there a lot more runway? I'd say it's a bit of both. Like he's obviously physically dominant for his age group, and he's dominant against kids his own age, and he's great against kids who are a little bit older than him. But at the same time, I don't think his game's fully complete yet, and I think you're going to see him be a really good power forward type at the WHL. But he's not quite a power forward type. He's more like a forward who can play with power, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Kind of a new modern day power forward, I would say.
Yeah, he's more.
There isn't many power forwards in the National Hockey League anymore. Well, there is, but they're quite few and far away. So
yeah, it's like a Victor Wembanyama versus a Shaq. He's closer to a Victor Wembanyama. He's he highly skilled, scored a ton this year, and against older kids too. So it should be a good one for them, and he should be able to have an impact right away. He'll play a handful of games next year, and then he should be able to step in right away at 16 years old.
Yeah, and the thing about him, when I was watching him on film, Nick asked me to watch him on film a bit. The thing I noticed with him is how good his read react is into the offensive zone. He predicts the play really well. If there's a loose puck, he's on it pretty quickly. If he notices a turnover, or he notices and anticipates a turnover, he's going to get that little extra step to get around a guy and receive a pass and try to get a shot on net. So he's a very smart player. He's a great two-way player as well. He's very aware on the ice. So I think Everett's going to get a player that kind of suits their system really well. You can put him on the power play penalty kill, and he's going to be a very, very big impact for them. So I think this is a great pick for Everett for sure.
Nick, you mentioned back there about, so far in the draft, we've seen a couple of kids coming out of U18. We're seeing guys come out of CSSHL, but we're seeing some guys out of smaller towns or AAA programs that aren't CSSHL. And now we're seeing someone from the Winnipeg area, or Manitoba area, I should say. Could you walk through kind of briefly on what the different regions are? Because the Western League is a little different in the sense that this draft includes players from 4 different provinces. Some kids are U18, some kids are U15, some are prep, some are AAA. Kind of give the landscape of what WHL scouts are kind of have to pedal through.
Sure. So the CSHL is the premier development pathway in Western Canada right now. You see, that's where most of your players come from. Like Connor Bedard played at that level. Dylan Gunther, Nathan Gunther did as well. You see that that's where Holden Wouters plays. So what you have is you've got schools that are basically hockey centers or sports schools, and the kids come and they play there. They go to school in that region, but they're not necessarily from that area. Keaton Veerhoff, who we've mentioned in the past, came all the way from Lloydminster, right?
Fort Saskatchewan.
Fort Saskatchewan. Darn, I keep getting that one wrong. So he came from Alberta, and he got recruited by Jerome McGinley to come play on his team in Kelowna, which is kind of a tough one to say no to. So you've got kids leaving their hometowns to go to bigger programs against better competition. And it's one of those where usually this is kind of a different year, but most years the first few kids off the board are all out of the CSSHL. And then what you have is provincially the provinces are quite different as well. So Manitoba, you only have 2 CSSHL programs, and then everyone else plays in the Winnipeg AAA League. And then in Saskatchewan, you only have 1 prep program in Notre Dame, and you've got a AAA program in Prairie. But then most of those kids play AA because Saskatchewan only has AA. It's basically AAA. It's the same thing. The top kids are just as good as anywhere else. And then Alberta, you have just a handful of CSSHL programs, and then the AEHL, which is AAA, is where most of the kids play. Like we said, Thor Lifton and the Calgary North Stars. Then you had the Red Deer Rebels, who won it this year, and St. Albert is always strong. And then in BC is primarily the prep schools.
Yeah.
It's
So they have 9 different programs. all throughout. There's 2 on Vancouver Island, 5 on the mainland, and then 2 in the Okanagan area there. So it's a lot of hockey. It's a lot of very good players in the BC area, and then they added Star Academy in the league.
which
And
is
tomorrow you're gonna
Idaho, right?
that is in Seattle.
Oh, I thought it was Idaho. Okay.
No, you're thinking of Coeur d'Alene. I think they're going to be
Oh,
there
okay.
eventually. But
Gotcha.
yeah, so they're based out of Washington there. They are a very good. They're a heavy team. They were very good. I was very surprised with how good they were. Considering Washington isn't necessarily a hotbed per se compared to a lot of other other teams in the U.S. So
I
I
think you're
thought
going to
they're
see it become one eventually, though. Like, look at the
yeah,
impact
absolutely,
the
yeah,
Coyotes had in Arizona.
yeah. And you're going to see a lot of names coming from that Star Hockey Academy taken tomorrow in the U.S. draft.
Yeah.
They've got some very skilled players there. So there's 10 teams that kind of play in that BC area. Star Academy comes up for showcases. Luckily, I'm on Vancouver Island. I'm from Victoria, so I've gotten the chance to go up to Shawnigan Lake. Beautiful facility, beautiful campus. They had a showcase. They've had 2 showcases there, and I got to watch all 10 teams play. Um, there in that regard. So I've been focusing mostly on that. And then they also have the BC Elite League. So the BC Elite League was before the Sports School League was the main source. They have 8 teams there. You got the Caribou team, which is based out of Prince George area. They got a couple of very good players that
They were awesome at the BC Cup.
yeah, they were very good. They had a lot of guys that popped out there. And then again, you got I think I want to say 4 or 5 mainland teams. No Vancouver Island team, but they have a couple of Okanagan teams. The one name you're going to see next year that came out of that league was Braden Jugnoth from the Okanagan Rockets. He was probably one of the better players in that league. And
His
the Okanagan team,
brother plays in the WHL for
Portland.
Portland. Thank you. I don't know why I was
Yeah,
blanking on that one.
yeah,
And so the top 2011 players seem to be in the BC EHL right now. Sorry, I just want to cut you off there and talk about Vancouver.
yeah,
They're up on the board here. I'm pretty sure I know where they're going with this pick, just based on my discussions with their scouts and Greg Batters, who leads their scouting group. They had a
yeah,
surprise that Barkley didn't re-sign with them as their GM, and I know that one came out of left field. So
yeah.
that could be impacting their group right now. But they've got 2 picks here, so they've got 6, and then they
And
have
13.
13. So, what are your thoughts on where they're going to go?
I'm gonna say based on our discussions that I think I know where they're gonna go as well.
Yeah,
There's a very certain player that they are a very big fan of. I've known Craig for a very long time. He used to be on the island. I've known him for about a decade. So it's Vancouver. They've got a great group of scouts. They've had a very good draft in the last couple of years,
they did
getting Blake
really
Chorney at
well.
10.
Blake
Yeah,
Chorney at
Ryan
10,
Lynn,
and then
who
Landon Horiachka at 55 was ridiculous.
yeah, so they do a really good job. Ryan Lynn.
Brett
Yeah,
Olson.
they
Olson's kind of
yeah,
struggled this year, but Lynn outperformed expectations. So
yeah. It looks like they just got the pick in, but yeah, I mean, great organization. Kind of, they're
oh,
another one of
who I
those
thought it was
where,
going to be. So they went with Louis Oscar Hollowaychuk. Uh,
ooh, interesting.
so Louis, we had at 11 on our board. He is a very small, high compete, skilled. He's a sniper. Why don't you go into
Yeah,
more detail on him?
yeah, of course. So I'm probably one of Louis Oscar Hollowaychuk's biggest fans. I was somebody, the reason why I loved Louis Oscar Hollowaychuk, you can look at his size and there's concern there for some people. But he is an extremely smart player. His little details in his game are what make him such a good player. Winning small puck battles, anticipation, great in the neutral zone, great stick lifts, reads the play really quickly, and he makes his line mates better. He's a guy that drives the offense on that St. George's team. His skating is one of the better skaters in this draft class. We weren't sure on where he was gonna go and where he would project. Usually the Western Hockey League is pretty heavy on the size department there. So we had him maybe slipping a little bit, but this is a player that in my opinion is a top 5 talent, no doubt about it. Local as
Well, we
well.
had him
St.
at
George's
3
is
on 3. We had him at 3 for midterms.
yeah, so midterms we had him at 3. I think yeah, like a top he's gonna be able to stay in Vancouver. St. George School is based in Vancouver. They have a very, very good program. We're going to see a lot of names out of that.
So he'll
St.
probably
Joe's.
play quite a few games in the league next season. He's
Yeah.
someone who I'll play devil's advocate to you here. I think where he struggles is penetrating. He's someone who kind of, if the bigger opponents push him to the outside, it's hard for him to get to the middle of the ice.
Yeah.
That being said, though, he is a highly competitive player. He's quick. He's got a great shot, and he competes really hard. I think if you can get him on a line with someone where he doesn't have to drive the bus the whole time, then I think that's going to be good for him. If he could play with like a Brett Olson, if Brett Olson continues to develop and develops into the player we thought he was going to be his draft year, that'd be a great player to put Holloway Chuck with. And he's someone who could be a 30, 40 plus goal scorer at the next level. He's probably the next best scorer after Pugh.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
He
and
was,
at the BC.
I said I had only 3 guys in that John Reed for A pluses. He was one of the 3. So 2 of the 3 have been taken. The next one's the Wolitsky kid, the big defenseman for.
Yeah, he should be on the board pretty quick here.
I'm surprised he's still on the board, honestly. Red Deer likes their players big and strong, so that could be the one where he goes. And
I thought Wolitsky or Whitechick, how do you pronounce it?
Holloway-Chuck, yeah.
Holloway-Chuck. I thought his IQ was off the charts. He's a very good skater. He's got great edge control. He can change direction. I don't know if he's a total burner at that size. Like, I'd like to see maybe one more gear out of him, because I think you need to have elite speed if you're going to play at that size in this league. But his hockey sense is very, very high.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like I said, if he can play with someone who can help carry the load, then I think he could be a real standout at the next level. But it's going to be about getting to the middle of the ice and getting into. Oh, there he is. Nolan Wolitsky at 7 to Red Deer.
Okay, that's a very Red Deer pick. That doesn't surprise me whatsoever.
So Nolan Wolitsky, we're starting to rip here. That was only a few minutes.
Yeah.
He was absolutely dominant at the Alberta Cup. I'm seeing, I saw flashes into 10 years from now when he's doing what he was doing at the NHL level. And there were a bunch of NHL scouts there, so I'm sure they were very impressed. So he was over a point a game for NAX. He was their top defenseman along with Cruz Jim. The two of them were a pretty dynamic pair. And with Wolitsky, like I said, he was over a point a game, but he projects more as a two-way / defensive defenseman. I think it's going to depend on how he's used in the early days and how he develops next season. But he's someone I will be very shocked if we don't see in the NHL in the next few years. And that's why we had him so high on our board he's 6'3", 179. There is so much upside with that player. So that's a heck of a get for Red Deer.
He's not the best kid in the draft, obviously. When you have a draft with a Maddox Schultz in it, that's kind of unfair. But he's my favorite prospect in the draft in the sense that he's got some very rare ability. Usually a big defenseman like that, they struggle in transition. He's smooth in his transitions. He's got good first touch. Usually big defensemen, they're a little raw. The puck bounces off their stick, especially on a backhand. Puck dies on his blade when he gets it. So he does some very difficult things really well. On the breakout, he looks over his shoulder. He's big enough that he could just absorb the check and move it. But he looks over his shoulder. He knows where he's going to go with it before he gets it. That shows he's got some IQ, some details to his game. I was really impressed with him at John Reed. I thought he was walking out of that tournament, obviously not seeing some of these other guys. Schultz wasn't there, and Nickel wasn't there. But I thought he was the best kid in the tournament.
And honestly, he was the best kid at the Alberta Cup. I'm honestly surprised that he fell to 7 because of just how good he was. It was one of those games where he's 6'3", so his stick's probably 5'10". If you got within a 5'10" area of him, the puck was going off your blade. He was he was dominant. And so that's someone who's going to be.
He's another
really
dual
good.
citizen, Nick, and I know that.
Oh yeah, he's
the
from Carolina.
Program is really high on him as well. So,
well, they could have that. Would be a heck of a pairing. Would be Lifton and Walitsky.
So I mean, those two guys. Again, I think it'll be interesting to watch, but that is going to be a battle for sure.
And I think, and we can talk about this. We'll probably talk about it at length. There's going to be a huge, I think, mindset shift in terms of. Oh, and there goes Christopher Kokoris at 8.
There we go.
Get back to what I was going to say real quick is you're not going to have to worry about a kid's NCAA eligibility anymore. So I think you're going to see a lot more kids do 1 or 2 years in the WHL, whereas before it was you wanted to play 3, 4, maybe even 5 years to get your money's worth because you were giving up your NCAA eligibility. So now we saw Eden Park step in to Calgary in the playoffs. You don't have to worry about that. So there could be kids that play at the program, then go back to the WHL or vice versa. Yep. So Christopher Kokoris, Jeff, why don't you tell us about him?
Yeah, so this is one of the most improved players, I think, throughout the year. Obviously, you look at his elite prospects page. He's 6'6". He is ginormous. Like we said before,
176. So
yeah,
there's a lot of way to fill out.
Yeah, he's when I first saw him, I mean, at the start of the year, he was a player that when he had the puck on his stick, he maybe wasn't as confident to rush it. He would make passes or force passes. Throughout the year, I don't know if he read our reports, I doubt it, but he gained so much confidence in his abilities. At the BC Cup, he was the first guy rushing the puck up the ice, and then he's the first guy back playing defense. Like, he had a tournament for himself, and this is something that I know a couple teams in the general area were talking to him. We saw that personally, so this is about where we saw him go. There's not a lot of players with his size and skill at this level, and that have improved drastically throughout the season as quick as he has. So,
and at the prep championships too, I thought Yale was. There was a competition between them and RHA Winnipeg for the underdog award, and Yale made it. They lost to Delta, who won it in the semis.
Yeah.
He probably played 45 minutes, in a game for them, and he scored an overtime winner. I think it was to knock off BWC, and it was one of those where I think it was 3-on-3, and this was like 2 months ago, so just give me a second. It was one of those where he lost the puck down low, got it back, cut back out towards the face-off dots, and overpowered a guy, and then turned north and dangled and scored. So it's one of those where he showed off his compete level, he showed off his poise under pressure, and then he dangled. And then you have to factor in the fact that he's 6'6". So this is a kid who, like we said, improved so much throughout the year. We had him at 68 on our board at midterm, and he went at 8. So Tri-City just took Ben Oliverio at 9. We were off by 1. We had Oliverio at 8, and we had Kokoris at 9, and they reversed that. So we were just off. But Ben Oliverio is a kid who's been on our radar for a couple of years now. He was on that Edge team last year that was so good, that came second overall at the prep championships. Yeah. And then he was dominant in limited action for the North Stars this year. So I got to see him at the Alberta Cup recently, and his compete level is off the charts. Like, he's the type of kid who will not quit on a puck. He's not a pretty skater. He's kind of got a choppy stride. He's only 5'8", but he's someone who I think is going to be really stocky when he fills out. He's already 161, which isn't huge, but when you're 5'8", that's pretty big. So I think he's going to be someone who can play in your middle six at worst, and he's going to kill penalties for you, and he can play a defensive game. And a lot of the guys who are elite level forwards, they don't necessarily have that plan B game. Like, Holloway-Chuck's kind of too small. If he's not scoring for you, then you're kind of running out of options just based on size. Pugh is pretty much a pure goal scorer. And we're not going to talk about Schultz because he's in a league of his own.
Everything scorer. Yeah.
Yeah, and then but Oliverio can play a gritty two-way game for you. He's kind of like a Travis Konechny type, and I think he's going to be really good for Tri-City.
Yep, they have a couple guys on Tri-City. I'm trying to think here. We got Cash Cook out of Edge.
Yeah.
That's a similar type of player that plays that game. They had Alex Ling last year from Delta, very smart two-way player. Trying to think, Cruz Paveo
Oh, Chris
is another
Paveo is unreal.
very good. Yeah, Aiden Bouchard. They got a really nice group coming up here. And adding to that is a player that can do it all. So they have a lot of players that can really kind of play that hard two-way game, and they're going to be a
So,
tough team to play against for sure.
so Brian, here's a stat line for you: 28 games played, 37 goals, 40 assists for 77 points, with 88 PIMs from Ben Oliverio. Led the team in scoring by 28 points. So
I didn't get a chance to see him at the John Reed because he was injured, I think.
You would have actually seen him last year with that Edge team. You probably don't remember him, but so he played on Edge's prep team last year and was over a point a game. And John Reed from 2 years ago, he was a point a game, four assists in 4 games. He needed 6 points in 5 games at the Alberta Cup this year. Like he is, he's a fun player. That's one of those where I can see him being a fan favorite. So in the playoffs this year, he had a measly 31 points in 10 games. So to go with 42 penalty minutes, when you're spending half the game in the box and still pulling off 3 points a game, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean at that, you talk about PIMs and stuff like that. Obviously, I haven't seen him play, but 42 PIMs, it's one of those things where it shows okay, this is the style of the game. Obviously, you don't want him in the box, but he's going to be a guy that agitates the other team for sure. Just the way he is, he's a bit of a bulldog. I love him. He got their 10th peer here.
So Kalen Miles, I'm not surprised by this one from Wenatchee, who took Boston Tate in the first round last year. That's a really good comparison, actually, to Boston Tate. So Kalen Miles was the 3rd best defenseman on NAX this year.
Oh, he's forward, Nick.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, not Kalen Miles. Sorry, I'm thinking of Will Keltz. Sorry, Kalen Miles. Sorry, there's too many NAX guys.
Yeah, we're going to see a bunch.
Sorry, so Kalen Miles, I had the wrong guy. I had the wrong big player from NAX. Anyways, Kalen Miles is one of the biggest power forwards in this age group. He, honestly, he scored well over a point a game. He's got really good hands around the net. Like I said, he's listed at 6'2", 176. And there's quite a bit of upside here. I would call this an upside pick. And
my notes on him from John Reed was excellent puck protection player. Like you said, Nick, I think his best game is down low and in front of the net. Shields it from defenders. He's got a quick release. He's got decent touch in tight, which is rare for a player that size. And he looks like he invites contact. Like he can roll off a check. He can shield off guys and then finish in front. A really good net front guy.
Yeah, he kind of sorry, I'm just he's kind of got a bit undervalued. I mean, not undervalued, but he's like their second line center. I mean, you're overshadowed. That's what I'm looking for. But guys like Riley Brown, Fayette, Keegan Bouchard, and he's a guy you root for. Like you watch him play, and you're like, this is the type of player you want on your team. Like he does a bit of everything.
Like I said, he's someone who is an upside pick. Like he's got everything you're looking for in terms of a big guy who can play down the middle of the ice. And so what I would say with him is there were times at the Alberta Cup where he was quiet and he was kind of relying on other guys to go get the puck. So it might be one of those where it's going to take him a little bit of time to really cement his game, but there are really good elements of it there. And he had 57 points in 36 games for NAX this year. And like we said, that was a heck of a team they had.
No, it's gross.
So, I've just got to hop off for 1 second. I'll be right back.
Yeah, no worries. I mean,
it's a little interesting, Jeff, that, and this isn't a knock on him at all. I actually think he's really good player. And like Nick was saying, he's kind of an upside guy. But he wouldn't have been the second NAX guy off the board,
No,
I don't think, if you had asked a lot of GMs across the
no.
league.
I don't know exactly what we had him rated as. I think we had him in the near 40s, 30,
I've got it
40s.
here at he's 33.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I mean, this is obviously Wenatchee had some great conversations with him, and their scouts obviously really liked him and what he brought to the table. But yeah, this is a guy that he's not going to come in as a 16-year-old and play top 6 minutes. He's going to be a guy that can play on that bottom six role, work his way into the lineup a bit and kind of get used to it. So I think the next year development's going to be really big for him. Actually, he's a player that can, if he's able to, match his potential, which I think he can. I think he's got every single tool in the toolbox there to do so. So Kamloops has their pick. They didn't get their fifth overall pick there. They got it from Everett. They picked there. So Kamloops did get a first round pick. I don't know what Kamloops is going to do. I have not a lot of info
They're in
on that.
complete rebuild mode.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they actually had some studs last year. Oh, they just took Mateo Ferreira.
Wow.
So Mateo Ferreira I would have said he was the second best, or sorry, I would have said he was the third best defenseman in Winnipeg, in Manitoba. He's a very dynamic skater. He moves the puck really well. He's got tons of offensive ability. He's listed here at 5'4", 133 though, so it's gonna that maybe he's got some family members who are taller, and he might still have some room to grow. But this is he's a high level offensive defenseman.
Yeah, I'm just watching some highlights on him right now. He does not look 5'4", so I think that might be inaccurate. But
I don't think he's that small now. So I think the ones we're seeing with the half inches or the 3/4 inches are guys who've been measured by RinkNet or by us. Liam Pugh, 5'11.5". I measured that one, so if that one's wrong, then that's on me. But yeah, I would say he's closer to 5'6", 5'7". But at the same time, he is a little bit on the smaller side. But that Winnipeg Bruins gold team this year was so good. They were light years ahead of anyone else. So yeah,
there was
this is.
I was going to say there's a certain team in this area that were very high on Ferreira. I remember at the BC Cup they were chirping Nick about it a bit. So we had him. I think we had him on the sec. Yeah, there's a certain team, but
I'll say who it was. So Chris Moulton of the Brandon Wheat Kings was giving me heck because I had him as a second team all-star for the Program of Excellence camp. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And he said he was the best player out there. And I was like, I just liked two other defensemen better. And he's like, "Well, they might go higher, but they weren't better." So he was busting my chops on that one.
Yeah.
But,
and Brandon has the next pick too. So I don't know if that's the direction they were going, but I mean that could be a possibility.
I don't know, but like we were saying, he was excellent at the Program of Excellence camp, and it's kind of like the same thing when the NAX kids and the Edge kids and the North Stars and the St. Albert get off their own teams and they get to play with other players in a more equal environment. Because so Crosby Matejchuk, who I'm surprised hasn't come off the board yet.
We've heard that name a lot.
I wrote about him actually for the Manitoba Winter Showcase. It was in January. It was at the same time as John Reed. It was minus 35. I've never been colder in my life. But I remember writing about Crosby Matejchuk going, he had 13 assists or 13 points in 3 games. But I was like, but keep in mind, his team scored 35 goals. So and he wasn't even on he was on one of the better outlying teams. But the teams in Winnipeg, they actually cut down. I can't remember what the number was they were at before, but they actually cut a couple teams. So it was stronger in the city, but then the scores were a little bit lopsided when they played teams from outside. So that was our first, I would call that one our first like way off the board pick for our board. So we had Mateo at 46. And honestly, it's one of those where if he was taller, he would have been higher. But I guess Kamloops is less height averse than we are. And then Kalen Miles is another one who was he was 33rd on our board. So our top guys left are Cash Elke, who I'm not surprised isn't off the board yet. I am his biggest fan. So Cash, if you're listening, love your game, man. And so I was actually told by a scout that his mother is about 6'1". So if we're talking upside, when mom is 6'1", that's pretty good. And he's already, I think he's 6'2" or 6'3" already. He had 66 points in, I think it was sub 33 games. So he was over 2 points a game, playing on a pretty bad Humboldt team. He had 4 points in 6 games at the U18 level, and I watched a lot of film on him at that level, and he stood out. Like, he did really well. So he's still on the board. Cruz Jim, I'm very interested as to why he's still on the board. I would have said, like, if we're talking small defenseman, he's the best. So I'm surprised to see that he's still on the board. And then we've actually done pretty well, I got to say. We've got 7 of our top 10 are off the board already within the first 11 picks. So that's pretty good. Yeah, and then we've got Crosby Matejchuk at 10, who's still left. And then we've got some interesting ones. We had Tegan Bouchard at 12, who was dominant for NAX before getting hurt. And then some players like Walker Filowich, Athens Shingus, Logan Henry. Riley Brown, I'm kind of surprised is still on the board. I know he was one of the more divisive prospects in this group. It seemed there were people who loved him and then people who didn't. So he's someone who could go in the next little bit here. So Brandon is the only Manitoba-based team, and they like to stick close to home with their later picks. But it's going to be one of those where they'll have done their research, they'll have talked to the kids, talked to the families to make sure they're going to get someone here who will report. But with their later picks, they do like taking Manitoba kids and SAS kids. Crosby Matejchuk is probably the top player from Manitoba still on the board. You also have Braden Gregg. You have Chase Gregg, who's his twin brother. And then you have Athens Shingus, who's still on the board as well.
Yeah.
So lots of Manitoba flavor here. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see one of those kids I just listed or someone else I didn't list go in the next at pick 12 or pick 15.
Yeah. The other thing I would add, Nick, to. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Brendan.
I was going to say that the kid that you had here with Ferreira. Sometimes I see this in the CHL, especially across. The Q does it, and the Ontario League does it. Sometimes an undersized defenseman might have higher value to a team than they do to maybe an independent group like us, because he's going to be with them for 4+ years. He's not going to go to the NHL at 19. He's also a late birth year, putting up a lot of points. It could be a power play guy, a distributor. So sometimes teams will value, it's easy to take the kid who's, projected top 50 pick in the NHL draft down the road. But sometimes you don't get their best years because they're in the NHL, or now you've got
we were saying that with Maddox Schultz. Maddox Schultz is going to be gone. 2028, he's going number 1 and he's gone. So there are kids here who will put up more points at the WHL level than him. So, Brian, one of the things that I find interesting that you talked to me about is player development fees. Can you explain how that works, and layering in how it works in with the NCAA and the USHL as well?
Yeah, so the CHL is the only league that has player development fees from the National Hockey League. So if you have a kid who's drafted in the NHL, it depends on where they're drafted, when they go in, all that kind of stuff. You're going to get a different value for the first overall pick than you are the 6th round pick. But some teams really rely on that money. Smaller market teams that may not draw as many fans, they've got to draft guys that they think are going to be pros. So they might take a kid, if we're talking a top 25 kid, they might end up taking the 38th best kid because he's 6'4" and he's got pro upside. And then the reverse, teams that have good financial backing, that have really good fans, they don't really need to worry about that. It's not part of their discussion. The USHL doesn't have it. NCAA hockey doesn't have it. U.S. national program doesn't have it. So CHL is unique in that regard.
So Cruz Gym finally off the board to the Brandon Wheat Kings. So there's a funny story here. Brennan York, who's one of their senior scouts, presented a Player of the Game award at the Alberta Cup, and he presented it to Cruz Gym, and I guess he whispered to him, "I'm only giving you this award if you come to Brandon," and said, "I guess Fish got his wish." So Cruz Gym to the Brandon Wheat Kings is this is a steal, an absolute steal and a half. So Cruz Gym was actually ranked a little bit higher up on our board going into the Alberta Cup. And I just thought that there were some other players that outperformed him, and that's why he, quote unquote, fell to 5. He was in the mid-teens. I think he was at 12 on our midterm list. And basically why he was lower down on our midterm list was I thought he was the same player at Christmas of this year as he was in March of last year. I wasn't really impressed with his development. And then in the second half of the season, did he take off? He is so dynamic off the line. He's one of those kids, like he's kind of like a Landon DuPont, Ryan Merkley type, where he might not blow a puck by you, but he can always send a off-speed pitch in that has eyes and finds his way through all the defenders and gets on net. Like he is incredible at just lacing shots through from the point. He's really good defensively too. He's, like I say, he's got the dynamic edges. He's got a great stick. He's not going to overpower anyone physically. And I can't remember who I was talking to about this, but one of the things I was saying is with the emergence of Landon DuPont, Lane Hudson, Cole Hudson, there is room for a smaller defenseman at the pro game. So I think with Cruz Gym being 5'8", there is actually room for him at higher levels. I think he's going to dominate at the WHL level. Like, I don't want to go so far as to say like Ryan Ellis type domination, but that would be on the very high end. But this is someone you're going to see run the power play for the Wheat Kings for the next 4 years.
Yeah, and I was going to talk about something here. Is that compared to a lot of other leagues, especially in the CHL, the WHL is very, especially in the first rounds as well, as commitment based. So, I mean, these kids are 14 years old, right? Like there's going to be kids that want to stay closer to home. You know, I don't know if a kid from Victoria wants to go play in Brandon as a 15,
or vice
16-year-old. Absolutely, right? So there's a lot of different
okay. Sorry, I just want to cut you off. This is
Yeah.
the pick we were talking about when we were saying,
Yeah.
I know where he's going to go. This was the pick. Greg Batters, you were saying, had nothing but good things to say about Crosby Matejchuk. And one of the coolest, I got to say, Greg, this was an absolute bar, things I've ever heard about a prospect. He said, everyone else here is rock and roll. This kid's smooth jazz. And I was like, I'm not 100% sure what that means, but that is a very applicable scouting report for Crosby Matejchuk. He is a sit in a rocking chair and surveil the game. And he's not moving quick per se, but the game is slowing down to his speed. That being said, though, he was playing 30 to 40 minutes a night. So when you're playing that much, you kind of got to slow it down. But this is a kid with legit pro upside. His brother Denton was a first-round pick to Columbus. And it's kind of the same thing. 5'11", 193. That is an absolute fire hydrant. So I think we're going to see a guy who plays a really good two-way game. And I think he's going to be someone who steps into Vancouver's lineup as a 16-year-old.
Yes, I mean, I heard his name probably in the second half more than any player in this second half here. But yeah, I mean, Vancouver, they got two great players in Holloway-Chuck and Matejchuk. I mean, it's going to be hard to say that. It's a bit of a mouthful. But
they're going to sound like the Soviet team. They got the Yucks going. And,
the offs, yeah. But yeah, this is a guy that Vancouver, we knew. We talked to the scouts, and they were very high on Crosby Matejchuk. They said they'd love to get him, but it's one of those things where
they're probably over the moon right now that he's.
Oh yeah, I mean Holloway-Chuck. Yeah, Holloway-Chuck's a very is someone I would consider in terms of the skill set, top 3 talent. And then you're getting Crosby Matejchuk, who maybe we underestimated a bit in the
I think we had him at
our midterm
69
list.
at midterms. And it
Yeah,
was
so
one of
that
those
just
it was one of those two where it's like it's so hard when a kid is so high above the competition level for his region. It's kind of hard to see, is he actually really good or is he just playing against weaker opponents? And then once we got that second viewing of him again, playing outside of his team at the Program of Excellence camp, it was like, no, this is the guy. He's awesome. So Kamloops just took Tegan Bouchard at 14. He was 12 on our list. So
I was going to say, guys, your top 12, 11 of the top 12 through 14 picks are off the board.
Yeah, and Cash Elke is my guy. If I was, like I said, I've talked to, I think everyone I know in the WHL I talked to, and I was like, I really like Cash Elke. And there's been a few people who give me but there's been a few people who are like, man, I really like him too. So like we said, that's someone who we knew we were high on. And it was one of those where I will take whatever comes. But in 2-3 years' time, when he is a star at the WHL level, I would like someone to clip this and send it to me because that'd be really nice. But let's not forget about Tegan Bouchard. So Tegan, like if you want to talk about a kid who plays the game the right way, Tegan Bouchard plays the game the right way. He's only listed 5'6.5", 153, which honestly is bigger than I thought he was. So he is someone who drives into traffic. Athens Shingus is a very similar type player, extremely highly skilled for Bouchard. He got hurt in February. I was actually at the game that he got hurt at, and it was too bad. So he missed the Alberta Cup. I'm going to say if he wasn't hurt, we'd be talking about him in the top 5. He would have gone higher, maybe as high as top 5. So he was one of the leaders for NAX, and I'm just going to pull up his stats here. He had 61 points in 30 games. So pretty good skill there. 21 goals, 40 assists, and he kills penalties for you. He can play a defensive style, and he had 3 points in 3 games at the U18 level, and a not bad 15 in 6 at the John Reed, where Brendan would have seen him.
Yeah, Nick, I loved his game. I think he's a puck possession style player. He's got a lot of poise. He's smart. He sees into the second layer. He took on, like you said, he can kill penalties, take smart pursuit angles. He's not just a flash guy who's all speed. He's actually smart, knows when to use it, and he plays at different gears. That's the thing I think that makes him difficult to defend. He can manipulate a defender's gap because he's not all speed all the time. He knows when to kick it into gear. He knows when to slow down. He knows when to curl off a play, hit the trailer. I think you're getting somebody who is going to make everyone around him better.
I was going to say Connor Bouchard played in the Western Hockey League. That's his brother, and very similar in size. So that those are 2 guys that are very high end playmaking forwards. So yeah, it's been the family there.
And I think this is a heart and soul type player. The personality of the player matters so much. And I worked for the Guelph Storm before moving out west, and that was one of the things when Guelph loaded up and won their championship. That I remember talking to my friend Phil Golding, who's now with the Vancouver Canucks, because Guelph and Saginaw, they both loaded up at the exact same time, and Guelph brought in Nick Suzuki. They brought in Sean Dursey, Mackenzie Entwistle, and there was a couple other guys in there. But those 3 players were they're like Nick Suzuki, obviously is Nick Suzuki, but they were guys who play the game the right way. And that's how teams win, is you don't necessarily need to bring in the guy who's going to score 50, 60 goals. But Tegan Bouchard might be the guy who scores, instead of scoring 100 points, he might only score 70 or 80, but he's going to play really good defensively for you. And he's going to be someone who is tough to play against. And he's smaller, but he's not someone where his size detracts from his style. So I think he's going to be loved in Kamloops. So Kamloops, just going back to last year, took Jacob Dumansky. They got him in, was that the second or the third round, Jeff? They got him.
Third round, I think. Yeah.
Third round. He was in the teens on our board. They got Joaquin Garris, who is one of the best defensemen. And then this year they've added Tegan Bouchard and Mateo Ferreira. So they've got a nice group coming here. And like we said, they went for it when they're hosting the Mem Cup. They brought in Olin Zellweger, and it kind of depleted the store. But now they're starting to really build it back up.
Yeah, and it's going to be a process, right? I mean, that's the thing with junior hockey is, when you get a chance to compete for the Memorial Cup, it's going to take 4 or 5 years to really kind of come back to that final form. I mean, we're going to see it in Moose Jaw this year. And then we probably might see it in Kelowna as well. So this is it's a deal that you got to make in order to win a championship, but you got to make that sacrifice as well. So Kamloops, I'm happy they got 2 first-round picks. I mean, losing that Landon DuPont pick there was probably not ideal for them. And then I believe who did they ever take? Reed Nickel. So them getting 2 first-round picks back is pretty good.
So we were talking about this before the show, actually. So the OHL, and I'm not sure about the QMJHL, but in the OHL, you can't trade first-round picks. So when a guy gets dealt, it's usually some star for 15 second-round picks and prospects. But in the WHL, you can trade first-round picks. And what we're saying is that both exceptional players in Bedard and DuPont were picked off traded picks. And if Edmonton had won the draft lottery, Maddox Schultz would have been off a traded pick as well. So it's one of those where you get a lot of picks that end up being really high-level kids who are getting selected. So
speaking of trades,
is there a trade?
Swift Current just acquired the 15th overall pick, and Brandon received Misselbacher and Brzezinski from Swift Current. Those are 2 pretty good players. So I'm wondering if they're going for a run here. But
I think this is going to be a cash Elkie. They're going for the local kid on this one. I could be totally wrong, but that's what my gut's saying.
There's one kid that I'm in a couple picks that I think is going to fit really well with the team. But yeah, Swift Current, they have they're another team that likes their local guys. I believe we had a scout at Neutral Zone who works with the Swift Current Broncos, Donnie Gaudreau.
Donnie Gaudreau is now a scout with them in Calgary. He's a great guy. And if we're just going to plug where else we got guys, we have with Prince George. Wow, I went for that and then I'm blanking on the name right now. His kid's Daryl Martin. Thank you. Owen Martin is his son and is getting drafted. I actually met Daryl in person for the first time recently. Really nice guy. So we've got a few graduates of the Neutral Zone scouting who are working in the Western League right now. So off our board, we've got Cash Elkie at 4, who, like we said, we knew it was high, and we're not surprised to see that he hasn't gone off the board yet. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him here because he's from Humboldt, which I don't know my Saskatchewan geography too well, but I don't think that's too far. And then I can see a Walker Filwich or Logan Henry hasn't gone off the board yet.
Yeah, I'm thinking Prince George there. I think that'd be a really good pick for them. He's from Prince George, so
okay, gotcha.
Yeah, but I mean, as well, I'm thinking about with a guy like Logan Henry. He has that Sask style of game in that conference. There, he's a big two-way forward, plays heavy, mean kid. So he was.
I think Will Kelts could go here too. Like if we're talking, they've got Kettles. You could have Kettles and Kelts playing together, and that they're kind of that's actually a pretty good comparison for who Will Kelts is as a player. And Riley Brown is also from Saskatchewan. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go here as well. So I think those are who were like if I'm putting money down, I'm going. It's going to be one of Elkie. I could see it being Henry Kelts or Brown, and then it's going to be none of them. But
yeah, we'll see. Absolutely, it's going to be a kid who we had in the later rounds. But
how are the guys that were traded? Are these immediate impact guys? Tell us about who those guys are and what they bring.
Misselbacher was the top scorer for Swift Current when I saw them play. He was a very good player. Brzezinski's kind of that veteran shutdown defenseman. can play power play, penalty kill. So this is obviously a trade that Brandon wants to kind of go for it. They did have a first round pick on Cruise Gym already, so using that pick as leverage to kind of get a couple of very solid players from Swift Current, who I guess are going in a little more of a retooling stage. This is a very good trade for both teams. I feel like they're kind of getting what they want each there. So it's yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know where they're going with this, but I think Swift Current obviously wanted a certain player, so we'll have to figure that out.
Yeah, so trading up and trading down are really interesting in drafts. I'm a big fan of trading down. So Swift Current obviously has a guy they think that is worth the swing here. And I'll be the first to admit, I didn't move out here until fall of 2022. I moved out here to work for Neutral Zone. And so guys from the pre-2008 birth year, I'm not as familiar with. But they obviously, Brandon obviously got a pretty nice return for the pick here, and some guys who will have immediate impact, whereas you've got to wait an extra year for guys to come in here. And that's kind of one of the things that makes retooling out here a little bit more difficult than in Ontario and Quebec, is you've got to factor in that it's actually a 5-year cycle now, not a 4-year cycle. Because the kid, you're like, this kid's going to turn our franchise around. And it's like, okay, well, you got to wait a year, and then he can turn your franchise around unless he gets exceptional status. And that's actually one of the things that makes the exceptional status a little bit different out here too, is in Ontario, Michael Misa, for example, who's the last one to get it, got drafted with the 06 group. And Matt Schaefer went number one, who's looking like he's going to go number one in the NHL draft. So they went in different groups, even though they're the same age. Whereas DuPont still was drafted with the 09s. He just didn't have to wait a year. So it changes things a little bit.
Yeah, and that year is huge as well for development, right? Like that year can make or break a kid. No pressure on the kids, obviously, but having that extra year, you could be an 8th round pick, have a really good year.
You see it all the time,
and then make the teams a 16-year-old.
Jake Bean, for example, is a big one.
Yeah,
went from undrafted, playing as a 16-year-old, and was a first-round NHL draft pick. And like we said too, there are kids who are. We were laughing. Road from
St. George's.
St. George's, sorry, thank you. I got fine. Alexander Road is one of the biggest kids you'll see at this age group. He is, I don't know what he's listed at, but he is an absolute truck. And there are kids up to his elbow. And so you get kids who are, I did measurements this year for the JPHL. They were absolutely lovely to work with. And we went in and I measured kids for, I think it was 13 hours. And so I measured just about every single kid in the JPHL. And the smallest kid I measured was about, I think, 4'10", and the biggest kid I measured was about 6'6". So you've got quite the range at this age group, but that's where the late development comes in. So you see kids who get passed over, and then next thing you know, they're playing in the Western League when they're older.
Yeah, it's a marathon, not a sprint, right?
So. Exactly. And I think it's going to be different too, because like we said, you don't have to worry about burning your eligibility. It used to be stuff where I hear about guys going to a practice with a WHL team, and next thing you know, their NCAA eligibility is out the window. So now it's going to be one of those where you can go play in the Western League, and then heck, you can move on to the USHL, you can move on to like the AJ, the BCHL, and still maintain that eligibility. So it's going to be huge for the players. So smaller guys used to always stick in Junior A. So I think you could see more small skilled guys make the jump to the Western League just because of the fact they're not worried about burning that year.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're going to see a lot of, I think the CHL is going to be a lot younger. We're seeing nowadays, like there's been a couple of NCAA players, 2005 born players that are playing NCAA next year that, maybe threw some people off. I know one for his Nate Miskey on UMass, I didn't really expect that. And when you're, a lot of NHL teams, I don't know how much of a say they have, but they might have their own different opinions after their draft year. So we may see guys taking this year's draft early on. I'm thinking that might their team might tell them to go NCAA. So it's a nice little agreement. It's going to be really good for the players and their development.
So with the 09 group, there's already been some interesting, actually, sorry, 08s and 09s. So the really interesting one is Eli McCamey. So Eli is committed to University of North Dakota. He got exceptional status to the BCHL. So one of the things I was saying is when Penticton joined the league, that's where he plays right now. Is I was like, so Victoria has his rights, but he plays in Penticton. So where's this kid going to go? And the consensus I heard from people is he's going to end up in Victoria. I was saying that when he got exceptional status from the BCHL, that if I was the BCHL, I would have had something in the clause saying you can't leave to go to the Western League. I don't know if they had that in there. So it might be one of the, so we're gonna see. I think he's gonna end up in Victoria this coming year, and they got him in the second round. And I know, Jeff, that's your hometown team.
Draft. Yeah,
they got him at 35. I think they got him. He was
35, and he's from the island too. So
and he was the clear number 2 overall kid, and so they got
absolute stud. So.
They got a 4.75 at 35. So he's someone who's really interesting. Ben McBeath, who we saw get traded this year, or sorry, just today, was playing for Salmon Arm, and now it looks like he's going to go play in Calgary this year. One to watch, and this one's going to be an interesting one, is Nate Yellowagga, who's playing for the Brooks Bandits right now.
Ooh,
I believe his family is connected in the operations of that team.
Yeah.
I think so. I'm not sure if you'll see him leave Brooks and join. It was the Hitman who took him in the 9th round.
I want to say it was Red Deer.
Oh, you're right. You're right. It was Red Deer.
Yeah.
So, So Red Deer has his rights, and they got him in the 9th round. We had him at I think either a 4.5 or a 4.25. I can't remember. But he's someone who works with Cale Makar in the summers, or I don't know if they still do. Skates like Cale Makar. He didn't have a crazy offensive year this year, but Brooks is a tough team to crack as a 16-year-old. So I'm not surprised he didn't have huge offensive numbers. But that's someone I'd be interested to see whether he ends up in the CHL eventually.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think if there's any other kids who were high-level kids who we haven't seen yet.
The kid McCamey, I saw him this fall out at BC Showcase. He was outstanding. But we did the USHL draft the last 2 days. I was kind of interested to see if he would go early as an indication that someone thinks he's going to come down to the States. And their new general manager was the prior general manager in the league at Waterloo Blackhawks. So I had my eye on that one, and he went very late, 15th round or something. So that would tell me that the market's pretty confident he's going to the Western League next year.
So I'll ask you about this one. Our top player off our board from last year, we had him at a 4-star when he's been knocked down to a 3.75, was Yeshon Hare. We had him in the 40s for last year when undrafted. Went 9th round, 130th overall. What do you say about him?
He had a big season this year with Boston Hockey Academy. He's a really smart player. A little bit undersized. I think that's probably why he would slip to 9th. But what I'll say about this is Boston Hockey Academy is not as well known in the States. It would be like a Sask AA team in your world. So for him to even get drafted out of that program says a lot.
And it's pretty rare too for a kid from Calgary to Boston.
Yeah, for sure.
And the thing with when he was on the Calgary Royals team that wasn't very good in the.
They were terrible last year.
Yeah, so him making the choice to
unreal at the Alberta Cup though. So the only thing I'm gonna plug our website here. The only connection I see between Yeshon Hare and the Boston Hockey Academy is that we loved him in Neutral Zone, and I know that there's been. I think Boston Hockey Academy was subscribed to us. And so if you're looking for some diamonds in the rough, some Yeshon Hares, we got them. We got them all over North America. I think we got players in every single region like that. And one of the things, I don't know what's going on with this break right now, so I'm just going to plug the website.
Saskatoon just traded for that pick.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Double trade at 15?
That's interesting.
You'd think you might see this like in the top 10, but you're 2 trades for a 15th pick is crazy.
Oh my God. I wonder
another Saskatchewan team though.
Do we know what the return is on that? Was
They're
it
just announcing the trade right now, so it'll probably pop up on my screen
okay?
here pretty
I'm gonna
quick.
check
Nick, if
But
this
Twitter.
is your guy here, then shows there's a lot of people fighting for him.
yeah,
Well, like we say, I can't say enough. He's big, he's skilled, he moves really well, and he's going to be a true center. And apparently, his mom is very tall, and I would assume his dad is very tall as well. So,
yeah,
someone cash in on cash.
yeah. Set 22nd, 72nd, and 93rd for 15th.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
So Swift Current traded the 15th overall pick for Saskatoon's 22nd pick, 72nd overall pick, and 93rd overall pick. So
Wow.
trading 3 picks to move up. Yeah, so they must really like this kid. I have no idea what Sask is going to do, but
Jeff, do you know where Swift Current was before their initial trade?
they were
They have
they
22.
they traded their pick. They were 10th.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah,
They were 10th.
so they moved up. I think they had the last pick in the first round, or the second last pick in the first
Yeah,
round.
they've got 22 from Medicine Hat right now.
Yeah, they just traded that to. Oh well, Swift Current just acquired that from Sask. Sorry,
Okay, sorry.
it's a lot going on. All right, the pick's in, so we'll see where they go here. But yeah, I mean,
They've had some success lately. Cooper Williams had a monster year for them. Olsen, but not Brett Olsen, the other Olsen, out of the Edge program.
Zach Olsen,
thank you. I thought he was excellent when I saw him play live.
Oh, they took Kane Martinook from Shattuck.
Okay. So there goes Kane Martinook. We had him ranked a little bit lower than I think, obviously, where the industry had him. We saw him play at the Western Canadian Crown.
Yeah.
So he was on a really good Shattuck team. He plays a pretty good two-way game, and yeah, why don't you talk more about him, Jeff?
Yeah, so he was on. It's a bit of an interesting one because you don't see this very often in BC. He was on St. George's last year. I want to say he was about 5'2", 5'3" as a first-year player. So he grew pretty big, and then also him going from St. George's, which is a pretty prestigious program here in BC, to Shattuck is very interesting. I would have liked to get a little bit more viewings on him personally. Obviously, I'm not in the States or from the States. We thought he'd be at the BC Cup. He wasn't there. We did get one live viewing of him, but we watched a ton of video. We had a lot of debate over where we want him to go. So I mean, it's not necessarily that we had him lower than he should be. We think he's a great player. I think obviously Saskatoon did their homework as well, and they saw him in the Nationals in the States, I believe, and they really like him. So he's from Peachland, BC, which is pretty close to Penticton. So yeah, a bit of an interesting story in terms of where they played this year. We don't see that very often in Western Canada.
So James, our director of Western Canadian Scouting, saw him live at the 14U tournament, and he thought he was more of a mid-round guy. I thought he was more of a second round guy, and Jeff, you had him more closer to where he went. So here's kind of what I'm thinking with Kane Martinook is I like his two-way game. I think he's a really smart player, and he gets to loose pucks. He's pretty good off the rush. One of my notes on him at the 14U championships, and this is kind of one of those where it's hard to evaluate players who are on good teams, is he scored a bunch, but he often scored goals that were outside of what's called tight, which is a 3-goal game. So I wouldn't be surprised. So it's one of those where I kind of downplayed the value of that, but at the same time, he's on a great team, so it's kind of hard to score all the important goals when everyone can score. So, but like we said, Saskatoon's done a really good job with their picks lately. We listed off a bunch of them there. And they had Tanner Molendijk, who they just got a plethora of picks for. So I think that it's hard. Let's put it this way: it's hard to bet against the Blades when it comes to their selections.
Yeah, I think with Kane, he might not have the ceiling that some of the kids above him have, but he's got a really high floor. He's really strong on his edges. He's a tough kid. He can play at both ends of the ice. He can impact a game when he's not scoring. he's got a physical, aspect to him. And yeah, you're right. And Nick, and that he was not a feature guy on that Shattuck team this year, but there's going to be there's going to be a lot of guys on that team tomorrow that's name's going to get called in the U.S. draft that are really Carter Morris, Parker Colmer.
Who's that right shot defenseman? I think he wears 11.
Daily.
Drew Daly. He's not eligible, I don't believe.
So he's going to be eligible for the WHL draft.
Yeah,
that is a stud. That kid is going to go very high in next year's draft. So that's probably their best player, and he's unfortunately not Western League eligible.
Yeah. So I think sometimes he's a guy that could make sense in that maybe Kane's not going to be a first-round NHL pick, but he's somebody who can play at 16 years old and impact your lineup.
Yeah, and like we said, they've got some good 08s already in the lineup, so he might not have to carry quite a load right away. And they did a good job with Olsen and Williams this year. So we shall see. And they've got Athens Shingus to Prince Albert. There we go.
Love it.
That's a great pick. So we had him at 14. They took him at 16. So Prince Albert is not afraid of small skilled players. So they had 1, 2, 7 in 2023. They took Daxon Rudolph, who was the clear number 1 pick. Then they took Riley Boychuk, who at 2. Then they took Ty Munier at 7. So Daxon Rudolph just played at U18s. I think he didn't play much, but he's underage, so whatever. Then Riley Boychuk had about half a point a game, and so did Ty Munier. Then last year they took the St. George's defenseman Brock Cripps at 2. And did they have another pick?
Ben Harvey
at 4, or was that 5?
Yeah,
I think they had him at 4. So anyways, so there's a lot of smaller skilled guys, and Athens Shingus fits that mold perfectly. He's got so like we were saying about Tegan Bouchard, this is a kid who's not afraid to drive into traffic. Like he is someone who he's only listed 5, 6 3/4, but he is someone who will go into all the high danger areas, and then you miss him in the pile, and then he comes back on, you still got the puck. He did get hurt at the Program of Excellence, so I'm not surprised to see that he slipped a little bit. He actually went higher than I thought he was going to go. But this is a kid who, if he'd been on a better team, he would have gone even higher. But this is a lunch pail kind of player. Like he grinds, but he's got skill and he's got speed. So I think this is a great get for them.
Yeah, I was going to say at the CSSHL Championship, they played Edge. Rink Winnipeg was the 10th seed, so they were the last team to make the Tier 1, and they played Edge as the 2nd seed. Athens Shingus was incredible. Like I remember watching him on the small ice. He will attack, and they'll have 3 defenders on him, and he'll still come out with the puck. And you're like, what? Like I was very hesitant because I look at that Rink Winnipeg team. They weren't the best team overall, and he excelled, but he was such a smart offensive player. His puck control is ridiculous. He was one of my favorite players of that tournament, and they ended up beating Edge, which was a pretty big upset at the time. And then it mostly came from Athens Shingus. He kind of drove the bus there.
He drove the bus. He unloaded the bags. He set up the locker room. Like he did it all for them. So Jeff,
that's the fourth kid from Manitoba taken for the first 16 picks. I would think. I'm not an expert on this, but I would think that would be more than normal.
Yeah, it might very well be. So Manitoba's got a pretty good ceiling in terms of their players, and then it kind of drops off really fast. Like we were saying, there's the Winnipeg Bruins Gold and Winnipeg Bruins Black were pretty dominant this year. Eastman was good as well. And then you have Reed Nickel, who's playing U18, and Athens Shingus, who's playing the CSSHL. Those are like the guys who've gone are quite high level players. So it's going to be a bit of a drop off in terms of how many guys go eventually. Like in terms of so like with our rating system, we give a lot of players have 3-5 grades that came out of Manitoba, but there were a lot of guys at their camp who were below that level. So it'd be like you'd have an Athens Shingus who we gave a 4.5, Reed Nickel was a 4.5. Even Ferrer was we gave him a 4-star. There weren't many 3.75s, and then there were a bunch of 3.5s, and then there were a lot of kids in the 3.25 grade. Whereas when I was in Alberta for the Alberta Cup, every kid except for a handful were 3.5 or higher. And then BC Cup, well, BC is 160 kids.
Yeah, there's a lot of kids.
Yeah, but there was a lot of 3.5 or higher grades.
Yeah,
so
there were a lot of kids that showed out.
I'm pulling for your boy Logan Henry here right now. I hope that the hometown kid gets to go home. That'd be really cool.
I think this. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, this is like, when I think of Prince George Cougars and I think of that northern BC, I think of Logan Henry. I think a style of play is going to fit that brilliantly.
He played angry at the BC Cup. Like, there was a bee in his bonnet, and he was someone who, it seemed he got knocked around quite a bit, which it happens, whatever. And he'd get up and you could see he was mad. So this is a kid who, like, we're assuming he's going to go here. I don't know if he is or not. That is a lot of pressure playing in your hometown. But that's a kid who plays a gritty game. He's great in transition. His skill isn't quite as high as some of the other kids, but I'm also someone who I think that sometimes you need the half-ton truck and you don't need the sports car. And this kid's a half-ton truck. Like, he carries the water for you, and so hopefully we'll see him go here, because that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, Brian, you were about to say something there.
I was just mentioning that I was just looking at the board real quick, and there's only been one kid from Sask drafted. That's obviously the number one pick.
Yeah.
In Schultz, there was 4 from Manitoba. So 5 of the top 16 would be outside of Alberta and BC, which are typically the real drivers of this league.
Yeah. And honestly, I think that could be with how good some of the, like, we saw some super teams this year. Like, NAX was a super team. And then even in Alberta at the AEHL level, and this is kind of a weird one because neither of these teams won, but the North Stars had so many kids who we ranked as 4-star or higher. And then St. Albert had a bunch of really good players. So I think it's one of those where if you've got someone who's helping to carry the load with you, that can drive your value down a little bit. Whereas if you're an Athens Shingus who you're doing it all by yourself, that helps you stand out. So I think that's one of the reasons we're seeing some of these kids slip a little bit. But actually, I don't even say they've slipped a little bit. But off our board, we still got Cash Elke at 4. And I would assume I wouldn't be surprised if Moose Jaw takes him. Swift picks again, and Regina picks again. So those are 3 Saskatchewan-based teams. Walker Filowich still hasn't gone yet. Logan Henry, we think. Oh, they went Cohen Baker.
Oh, now this is, I don't like to call a 14-year-old a pest. I don't think but he's an anomaly. I think he is a player that is high skill, high compete, is just like, he is 100% all the time. He is one of those guys you hate playing against. A bit of a smaller guy, but he's a guy that, I mean, in terms of offensive ability, he's a very smart player. He an opportunist for sure. Super skilled.
Opportunistic.
Yeah, he's very good at anticipating the turnover. Maybe a little too good at times, where he tries to get a step ahead and catches himself out of position. But this is a guy that has a very good top end speed, smart with the puck on his stick, a winger. But like I said, he's a player that can, he'll talk the talk, he'll slash, he'll whack, he'll do anything he can to get under the opponent's skin. There's a few times I watched him play where, I mean, Chris Kokoris is one where he and him went at it pretty good in Sean again. Holding the waters a couple of times I've seen him. So this is a guy that you love to have on your team. He's very intense, and I think at the Western Hockey League level, you're gonna have to do maybe know when to tone it down a little bit so you don't take a dumb penalty. But at the same time, he's a player that plays 100%. You're never gonna have to question his his work
level.
ethic in terms of his compete.
Yeah, he was very good at the John Reed, and my notes next to him was Brad Marchand.
Yeah. He this is a you never really have to guess what he's thinking kind of player. Like he's pretty vocal about his emotions, so that's something that he's
He's
gonna
gonna be
have
a
to
fan
work on.
favorite.
And so it's gonna be one of those where he's really highly skilled. We knocked him down our board a bit just because of the fact that what we saw at the BC Cup was, like Jeff said, he was very opportunistic, and he was someone who was good at getting in behind the opposing defenseman. I think he's someone who's pretty easy to get off his game, though. He is someone who needs to remember that when the whistle blows, you kind of got to stop. So he takes a lot of unnecessary penalties, but at the same time, he was a premier scorer in the best development league out here. So he could be someone who does a lot of really good things at the next level. And like we said, his compete's very high, and yeah. So
you know what they say, Nick? You'd rather tame a lion than push a lamb.
Absolutely, and he is definitely he's going to be a fun one for them to tame. So
he's an interesting one. There's just the thing about him in particular. I had a train of thought and I just completely forgot it. Like I said, he was a guy that I think, in my opinion, he's either going to go really high or he's going to slip a little bit. There's a team that's going to really like him, or there's teams that aren't going to necessarily be fond of him. But he's a fantastic player. I remember watching him last year. He kind of reminded me this year a bit of Kyle Bobaifo on Burnaby, who kind of had a similar thing at the championship, where he threw him off his game a little bit and he wasn't very effective. But he's a player that when he's on, he's very, very skilled. He can get behind D. He anticipates well. He'll throw the body. Like I said, he's going to be a guy that that fits that Prince George identity pretty well. I think his often. I mean, in terms of his growth, I don't know if he's going to get much bigger. He's listed about 5'6". I think that's about right. If he can grow to about 5'9", 5'10", I think Oasis Weisblatt was a comparison I was talking to him about. I think that's a pretty similar type of player. Guy that's gonna, put up points, but he might get 100 penalty minutes and might be in the middle of every scrum.
So this season he had 64 and 66 with 80 pins, and then John Reed 8 and 5. So, and then let's see what he was postseason. He had 6 points in 3 games, including 4 goals. So he there is a lot of skill there. So Moose Jaw, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Saskatchewan guy here. I keep waiting for the Sask guys to start flying. I honestly think
there he goes.
There you go. Congratulations, Cash, to the Moose Jaw Warriors. That is a great pick right there. I'll take this one because this is my guy. So, like I've said it before, Cash Elke, they've got him listed here, 6'2", 165. He scored. What did he have? I think he did 19 points in his last 5 games or something like that. I'm going to pull this up here real quick. So I just remember
watching Humboldt at the Rocky Mountain Classic, and I think he had the puck probably 75% of the time.
Oh my God.
Including when he was off. Like, he is everywhere.
I'm going to, here's some stats for you. In his last 5 games, he had 8 goals and 11 assists for 19 points. In his last 10 games,
that's not a lot.
13 goals, 14 assists for 27 points. So he only scored 66 on the year, but 27 of them came in the last 10. He also had 4 points in 6 games as a member of the Tisdale Trojans at the U18 level. And he actually got into a ton of playoff games. No, sorry, he didn't. He got into 2 playoff games for them. He's one of the only U15 players to get into U18 playoff games. So that goes to show how mature he is. He's a true center, and he's going to play. I think he's going to play center at the next level. So yeah, there is a lot to like about his game. I thought he was the second best player at the SAS top 80, and this is right around kind of where I thought he was going to go. But obviously, if I'd had a pick earlier in the draft, he would have been gone around pick 4 or 5. But this is an all upside pick. So yeah, I think he's going to fill out. Like I was watching him at the U18 level, and he did all the little things right. Like he was coming back right. I think he was actually playing wing, but he was kind of playing more like a center. And I'm like, okay, all you have to do is just put him at the center position. He'll be fine. And I think this is the future captain of the Moose Jaw Warriors. So, and he gets to stay relatively close to home. So
I was going to say, that's the second year in a row where a guy on a Humboldt team is kind of driving the bus. And Caden Shorter was very similar last year, where he had the puck on his stick. Yeah, he had the puck on his stick the majority of the time, and he helped carry his team through games. I think Cash Elk was on that team on the second line. I think he was about 6 feet then too, but he was a big kid, but he wasn't very developed yet. This year, he kind of took a step in the right direction.
So last year he had 22 points in 28 games, which is good, not great at that level. So a big step forward offensively.
Yeah, and we like guys that are getting better in terms of their
and we put a lot of emphasis into the second half of the season. And I guess we'll talk a little bit about our philosophy here and why Cash was so high up on our board. Is like I was saying earlier, like we were saying about Logan Henry. He's like a half-ton truck. Cash Elke's kind of cut from the same cloth. And when it comes to playoff time, these are the types of guys you need on your team. And I think Cash is going to be a guy who plays a 200-foot game, and he's going to be hard to knock off pucks. He's going to win puck battles. He can kill penalties for you. So he led his team in scoring by 12 points this year. I was doing some math earlier when I was trying to justify. So he was in on 48% of his team's goals. Like any goal they scored, he was in on 48% of them. And I think he scored 20. Yeah, because he had the equal. He scored 24% of them. So if the Broncos scored a goal or 4 goals, he scored 1 of them. So this is a kid who did everything for his team this year and only had 18 penalty minutes. So he's able to keep it between the lines. So this is a great pick for Moose Jaw. And he gets to, like we said, stay close to home. Because we got some time, I'm gonna Google Map this one, see how far he's got to go.
There we go. And next up is Victoria. They had
that's a big one for you, Jeff.
Oh yeah, they had a if it turns out he goes to Victoria, they had the steal of the draft. They had a fantastic draft. They took Jacob Schwartz last year. Colton Hurst they took as a defenseman. They have Victoria's identity is a bit interesting for me. A lot of smaller skill guys. It's been like that through their entire existence as an organization. You got Joe Hickett's, Matthew Phillips. You got a couple. Keaton Verhoff's an anomaly, but then you got a couple of other absolute tanks. But Cole Reshny, a smaller guy compared to a lot of. I think he plays a very mature game. But this is a team that blew my expectations away. They played a very hard, tough Spokane team. They took them to 6 games when Portland in the next round only took them to 4. So this is a team that has a lot of very skilled, talented players. James Patrick is a fantastic coach. He won Coach of the Year this year. I think he really brings the best out of his players, and those players respect him a lot. I know that for a fact. So I'm really interested to see where they go here. If they like BC,
they're building something really good though.
Really good, yeah. They got,
like you said, the guys they've added in the last few years and the coaching. Like I was talking to an executive in the WHL, and that was one of the comments he made was, I can't remember who the player was, but he's like, "Can you imagine if James Patrick gets his hands on him?" I'm like,
no, that was Greg. Greg Batter said that about Alex.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Can you imagine if James Patrick gets his hands on him? Like that's going to be," and so coming from a rival team, that is extremely high praise. And we're going to see where they go. Like we said, our top guy on the board now is Walker Filowich, who was a player who I think was a little bit divisive amongst people. When he's at his best, he's one of the best players you're going to see in this age group. And he was probably a top 5, top 10.
Oh, wow. They traded, they got, so Penticton took Wyatt Danilenko from the Victoria Royals. The Victoria Royals just acquired him back for Cash Algaris, who was taken, I believe, a couple of years ago. So Victoria wanted Danilenko back. He's from the area. He's a suit guy. So they just acquired him back in exchange for exchange for one of their prospects. So that's an
So,
interesting one.
does that impact this pick or?
I'm not sure. I saw the two names and I didn't look at the pick.
Okay.
And if Penticton does, I mean, Penticton, they got a defenseman, they could get a forward, but I don't know if they traded the pick or not. I wasn't paying attention. I just saw the name pop up. But yeah, Victoria, they got a very interesting way of drafting. Jacob Schwartz is a smaller guy, kind of reminds me a bit of Holloway Chuck, maybe a little bit
Yeah,
better
he's better
defensively.
defensively. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I mean, you got Keaton Verhouse going to be a top 5 pick next year, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
yeah, they got a really good foundation coming up. It looks like they're going to make the pick, actually. I'm not sure who they're going to get. Oh, Greschuk from St. Albert.
Okay. So that's not someone I'm surprised to see go in this range. I thought he faded at the Alberta Cup a little bit, and that's why I think we had him at around 50. Yeah, we had him at 50 on our board. But he's someone who's very skilled, very silky. He's a really good defenseman. He's bigger too, and he's just like a really good puck moving, good defenseman in transition, and he's good in the defensive end too.
Yeah, I did only saw them at the Rocky Mountain. I didn't have a ton of notes on him, but from what I said, yeah, they're building a really good defense core back there. They got Kip Keen
And he's a left shot defenseman.
left shot too. That's a nice pick.
Yeah, so not necessarily where I would have gone with the pick, but you can't really fault him for going with 46 points in 31 games from the back end. And and he had 2-5 at the Alberta Cup and 5-5 at the John Reed. He was
really good at John Reed.
Yeah, most nights he was the best, if not one of the best, if not the best player on St. Albert. So not surprised to see
big time shot from the point. He's got a big time one timer. At this age, not many kids have that. He's a heads up guy at the point. He doesn't shoot into screens. Doesn't get his shots blocked. He's a heads up guy on the breakout. He can see into the second layer. He's somebody that can stretch the ice. He's got a firm, flat, hard first pass. And defensively, he's more of an offensive guy at this level, but I think at the next level, he's probably a middle pair. And he's pretty strong on his edges. He's got a good stick.
Yeah, and he was a member of that really good St. Albert team. So, like we were saying, we're still surprised to see Walker Filowich on the board. He's someone with first round talent. When he's at his best, he's one of the best in the game, but he can be a little bit inconsistent. Roan was much more consistent this year for St. Albert, and like we said, was the leader from their back end. So yeah, Victoria obviously liked what they saw. Like I said, I thought that he was really good to start the Alberta Cup, and then he kind of came down a little bit towards the end. But he's someone with a very nice ceiling. So sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say they had a bunch of good forwards taken last year. They're going to get a pretty good defenseman this year, and I trust them with defensemen. They've got a pretty solid back end there. So Kelowna gets the pick from Spokane from the Andrew Crystal trade. So I'm wondering where they go here.
They want Will Keltz, who was 16th on our board. So he went 20th to Kelowna. Will Keltz is he's the guy I always started talking about when I thought it was who did I get confused with? I'm confused with Kalen Miles. So this is the 4th NAX player off the board in the first round. And honestly, there's a few who I thought could have gone already. So Will Keltz is kind of more of a stay-home defenseman type, I think is what he's going to progress to at the next level. But he's really good at rushing the puck in transition. He's got great anticipation. Like he's someone, again, he's kind of like a Waletzky where he can step up and hold the line, knock pucks away in transition and cut to space and start to play the other way. I don't think he's going to be someone who has a super high ceiling offensively at the next level, but he's going to be a guy where you're going to put him out to kill penalties. He's going to probably match up against the other team's top line. And he's big. He's listed 6'2", 193 already. And he's going to eat a lot of minutes for you. So this is a really good pick for Kelowna.
Kelowna defenseman. I think they've got a pretty good grasp on what they like and what they feel is a solid defenseman. They've got quite the alumni list of players coming out of that Kelowna Rocket program. So I trust them with what they see. I think that again, he's another guy that flew under the radar a bit. You got a first pairing of Wolitsky and Jim, who just both went. He was kind of their second pairing guy, sturdy. I don't remember a ton of bad things about him, which is a good thing for a defenseman. There wasn't really a lot of lapses there. It's kind of your prototypical defenseman, in my opinion. Again, I've only seen him maybe once or twice in person. Nick's seen him a lot more than I have, so I'll take his word.
Yeah, this is a very good player, and like I said, he was the third defenseman on NAX, and behind Jim and Wolitsky was their top line. But
Yeah.
he is very good, and I think there's a lot of runway left with this player. So on our board,
he's a guy who's really good at gapping up on a guy off the rush and sealing him off before he can get zone entry.
yeah,
And he instead of like trying to make the big stand up check and open ice, which he can do and he does do, he's really good at riding guys off the puck along the wall, and he's good at pinning guys down low, so that it takes their hands away, pins their feet to the wall so they can't move. And then he's excellent as a net front defender, clears out lanes so his goalie can see shots cleanly. He doesn't allow for second chance opportunities. Head's always on a swivel. This is a really good, deliberate, disciplined defenseman.
So Seattle steps up on Brooke. I think it's Hiley is how you pronounce that. So he jumped up our board, and we ended up putting him at 42. But he was one of the best kids at the Alberta Cup. Like he was, like his anticipation was really good. Like he was, like we were saying, he steps up and stifles the rush and then turns the other way with the puck. He was activating off the line really well and getting into the offense and getting pucks through. So he played with Thor Lifton. And at the start of the season, I would have said he was a perfect complementary guy. And then when I saw him at the Alberta Cup, I'm like, oh no, this is a guy who can drive the play himself. So this is a guy who had a huge second half, and Seattle obviously liked what they saw. And they've been pretty forward heavy in their last few drafts. They took Brock.
They've got a stacked group.
Brock England, who's a 4.75, somehow slid to them at 11 last year. And then they took his edge school teammate, Matthew Hilderman, who is a absolute bulldog, in the second round at 23rd overall, which is now the first round. And then the year before, I'm blanking on who they took.
Well,
they didn't have any picks.
Yeah, they have Braden Coots in there.
Oh, Braden Coots is 07 though. The 08, though. I don't think they had any high. Brendan Rudolph stepped in this year for them, who was a 7th rounder. We had him way higher. But yeah, so they're loading up the back end here with Seattle, who has one of my favorite defensemen in Radim Mertka. And they just traded Sawyer Minio to Calgary. So this is someone on the left side they're hoping can step in to fill that void eventually.
Yeah, for sure. Cliff Curran gets another pick again.
I think this player is a really high IQ guy. Stands out to me. He's not someone that has to handle the puck. He gets it, moves it, sees it. His game's going to translate.
So with this next pick, I wouldn't be surprised to see Swift go Riley Brown. He's a Saskatchewan kid who played at NAX this year. I'm surprised that he's still on the board, honestly. He's someone I really like who plays a power forward style. And so in Regina, in Saskatchewan for the SAS Top 80, he really got outside of his style of play, and he was trying to play more like a skilled centerman. And whereas he's a dump it in the corner and go and hit somebody type player, and he's at his best when he's cycling down low and using his size to his advantage. He's got quite a bit of skill too. So just because he's local, I wouldn't be surprised to see Swift go Riley Brown here. But on our board still, the big ones are Walker Filowich, Logan Henry, Riley Brown, Cole Laundreville, Cruz Nicolay, Chase Fedoriuk, and then the goalies. So there's some names I'm very surprised at who haven't gone here. Namely, Filowich is one. Like I said, he's a little bit inconsistent, so I'm kind of not surprised that he's
Yeah,
slipped a
he's a
little bit.
guy that for me, he chooses his moments a bit too much, and that's something that he's going to need to work on. I think there are times where he's watching the play, he's not necessarily, putting his best effort into to make a play out of it. He's just kind of, I don't want to say floating around, but he's evaluating the play a little too long in terms of, try for a player that he is dominant. He's huge. He's about 6'2". But yeah, just a couple other things. Ooh, Rotar.
Cohen Rotar.
Interesting.
So Cohen Rotar was on a really good Grand Peace team this year, and he was in the first game of the Alberta Cup. He was the best player on the ice. He really elevated his game, and he was taking over. Again, I thought he kind of settled into a more where he was role, but you noticed him quite a bit when he was on the ice. I know this is a guy you like, Brennan. He's super skilled. He competes really well for pucks. He's a little bit on the smaller side, but the skill is really high level.
Yeah, and that Grand Prairie team was pretty good considering, Grand Prairie is kind of like a smaller area, I would assume, Nick.
Yeah, it's really far north of Edmonton and to the east, to the west. You also got to take in mind though that the Cruise Gym is from Grand Prairie, and so is another NAX defenseman whose name I'm blanking on right now. Cole Krebs.
Yeah.
Krebs. So this team was missing two of their top guys, and they were still one of the better teams in Alberta. But like I said, Cohen Rotar has some really sneaky skill. He's good at finding gaps in between players and making high-level passes. Like I said, he had an excellent Alberta Cup. He came out of the gates really hot and then cooled off a little bit, but he jumped way up our board just because of how good he was against top-end competition. And where did we have him? We had him at 49.
All right, so it looks like the final pick is going to Regina. I still can't believe they got Schultz and Pugh. That's crazy. That's insane. I would go defenseman here.
Level. That's Sedin's
I'd go
level.
defenseman or goalie. I'd throw in.
I'd go goalie. Yeah, I'd be going Carter Gibson or
Androsov.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised they haven't gone yet, but they are really freaking talented. They are, like I said, they're both massive. They're both athletic. They both move really well throughout their crease. Like the goaltending out here, like there's going to be a lot of goalies. I think we had 12 in our top 100, which is absolutely insane. But I've said it, like usually you get guys who are 5'6", 5'7", who are really good goalies, and then it's hard for them to make it to higher levels just because of the size aspect. This year, the really good goalies are 6'4". So I would love to see a goalie go here. I think that would be a huge swing, or like you said, a defenseman. Our top defenseman is Cruz Nicolay, who is a really silky defender from Red Deer. He was excellent again at the Alberta Cup and won a AHL championship this year. Our top goalie is Carter Gibson, but he's only one spot ahead of Androsov. So we'll see. And then Chase Fedoriuk was really good as another defenseman. Was really good for OHA Edmonton this year. He's one of the best. He's probably the best transition passer in this draft. Like he can hit a 2-line pass like no tomorrow. So he had a bit of a quieter prep championship though. So that's probably, we had him really high in midterms, and then he fell to our 21st overall. But it's one of those where he was playing on a smaller surface and it was tough to make passes at the Memorial Arena. So that might have impacted why he's fallen a little bit. But we'll see where Regina goes here. I think this is.
Guys, I missed the last part of it. I was having some technical difficulties, but I saw the Rotor kid when I loved this kid at John Reed. talk about a silky mitts. This guy has outstanding puck possession skill, dynamic one-on-one. Might play a little too much one-on-one hockey. Probably need to utilize his teammates a little more, but I thought he was one of the best puck possession, creative, instinctual puck handling forwards in the entire tournament.
He played with.
Yeah, it's interesting that. Sorry, it's interesting that a lot of these Saskatchewan teams, who I kind of described, they're going smaller guys. Like
Yeah,
Prince Albert's, they're definitely a little bit more of the smaller skill, and Swift Current, who I think of guys like Peyton Kettles, who are big, heavy, play a heavy game. You're taking Colin Rotar, who a bit more of a a lot of skill. So a little bit
he
different.
played. So Rotar played with Chase Huberdeau at the Alberta Cup, and the two of them were really good together. So I think he has the ability. Like that GP team was a little bit top heavy. Like he had Rotar and Nixon Bettinson, and then they had really good goaltending this year in Larocque and Brochu. But it was one of those where he didn't necessarily have the guys to play with. And what I did like about him at the Alberta Cup, like I said, is when he had the skilled guys to play with, he did move the puck a little bit more. So he impressed me a ton.
It's taking a bit for this Regina pick, so
It's
there
probably
might be a
getting dealt
trade.
twice.
Yeah, dealt twice, three
It's
times.
got two more teams to get through.
Yeah, yeah. And the last pick, they want to make us wait a little bit longer. I think we've been on 2.5 hours now, so it's actually pretty good. I thought it would be a lot longer, to be honest. Last year was a bit of a maybe because they all had it in the same day. It felt like first round went as long as it did, but yeah,
This has been long. This has been 2.5 hours for 23 picks.
Yeah. I mean, they got to do their interviews and their show and whatnot, and I respect that. But yeah, if you come and stick along for tomorrow, they'll be a lot quicker, I hope. And
Well, the U.S. draft, I don't know how that's gonna impact things.
yeah, so I mean, I hope it's not as long, but at the same time, those picks go like this, they're gone. So it's a
Yeah,
different pace. We're gonna have a little less downtime to talk about things, but yeah, I want to say I think the Western Canadian, the team in general, I'll give a couple shout outs to the couple of the BC guys, Scott Drysdale, but based in the Okanagan, and Daryl Stone, who came in this year in Metro Vancouver. He did a fantastic job of coming in for us and helping us out. They're both did a great job, and we think our scouting staff, we work really hard just in general to make sure that this list is accurate. We're at these games, we talk to the scouts. We're in the rink. If you see a WHL scout and ask them if we're at these games, we're at these games. We're talking to guys. We have some connections. And we work hard for these lists, and you may not agree with some of the
there he
things that we've.
goes. Logan Henry.
Logan Henry, I love it. Yeah. Again, this to me is an identity pick. This is a guy that's going to protect Maddox Schultz and Liam Pugh. I have a feeling if he played, I think he's played on the wing. I think he played on the wing at championships. Hey, right?
He's gonna play on the wing. This is
Winger.
gonna be a dump the puck in the corner. This is the guy that's gonna go get it, and then he's gonna move it to Schultz. He's gonna move it to Pugh, and it's gonna be in the back of the net. So
yeah,
Regina's gonna score a lot of goals in the coming years.
Yeah,
So
again, this is a kid. When I think of Saskatchewan hockey, I think of a Logan Henry type of player. This is a guy that the guy it's going to be the F1 in the forecheck. He's strong. He's a heavy body. He throws big hits. He's not afraid of anybody. When he plays angry, he's very good. Not the quick. No, doesn't have the prettiest stride, but he's has a strong lower core. He can really get going. He's got a deceptive shot. He can have those moments where he stands out offensively. He'll make a crazy play, and then also defensively, for me, is where I really like him. He's a fantastic at as a centerman. He did a really good job of when defenders are rushing the puck out. He takes away space. He hovers really well, and he's a reliable two-way guy that I think has a great motor and a great compete. His composure is something that he'll need to work on a bit. If he gets run around a little bit and guys will chase him and chirp him and talk to him, he'll throw off his game a little bit. But if he's able to deal with that, he's what I like to call nails. He's a great overall talent. I think that Regina's getting a good identity player there for sure.
Yeah, he's gonna get to play with two absolutely skilled guys. So I think
Yeah,
he's
no worries.
that. If you're Logan Henry, you're pretty excited right now.
Yeah, he's a very good player.
That completes the first round. Just looking at our board, our top available player is Walker Filowich. We had 13th. And and then after that, we've got our picks 18 all the way up to 32 are still on the board. So it's going to be an interesting day tomorrow. There's a couple surprises, I would say, but nothing too crazy. And
yeah, I mean, and that happens at every draft, right? Like I'd love to sit there and say we know these things. We don't ask WHL scouts who they have on their list and where they have them. That's just like an unwritten code thing in any scouting group or anything. But yeah, this is obviously they put in the work. We see scouts all the time. We try to go to these big tournaments. We're there, we're chatting, we're watching these kids play. And overall, I think it's been an interesting one. I can't believe they got Pew at 3 in Regina. That is insane. I did not when I first saw this draft and you told me that Pew and Schultz would be on the same team, I'd be like, no, you're joking. Like, there's no way.
Especially if you told us that in September.
Oh no, yeah, there's no chance.
This is Daniel and Henrik Sedin level. The WHL's version of Daniel and Henrik Sedin is about to happen.
Yeah.
So
and again, I was just gonna say, I mean, if you're like I said, even after the draft, it's very easy to get discouraged if you didn't get drafted. There's a lot of kids. There's a few kids that I really like that I thought would translate to the Western Hockey League last year that didn't get picked. And they went to camp and they got listed. So it doesn't really matter where you get drafted. You can get cut and taken off the protected list if you get drafted and have a bad camp. It just comes down to, overall, just this is the first step, but it's also make the most of it. It's just one step. Go hard in the gym, work on the ice, do anything you can to become a player and prove us wrong if we have you listed. I mean, if you're Liam Pugh and you saw that we had you 6, prove to us that you should be number 2 or number 3, stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Okay, Brendan, any last words?
I would just say that typically in junior hockey, a little bit in the NHL too, but definitely in junior, first round picks, they typically, not always, but typically want to go a little bit safer. So I wouldn't go with the idea that the first rounders are necessarily better hockey players than the second rounders, or that they're going to go further in their career. You're going to see some second and third round picks tomorrow that are better than some of the kids that got taken today. They might just have a wart or two, or they might, have some question marks. And there'll be guys, if you look at the league, you can do this pretty quickly on elite prospects. Look at captains across the CHL. A lot of these kids are drafted after the 5th round. So the where you go in the draft matters less, I would say, than how you do at camp. There's no salary cap in junior hockey, so they're not paying the first rounder significantly more than the 5th rounder. So, it's fun, and we keep our list and we put a lot of emphasis on where guys are on the list. But from the player's point of view, it really doesn't matter if you're ranked 135 or 25. If you do better at camp, you're going to be the one that they want to sign. Mm-hmm. We see it every year, don't we, guys? Where second, third round picks don't get signed, and a 6th rounder gets signed, and people go, "What the hell happened there?" So,
all right,
guys. Thanks a lot for tonight, and we'll see you guys tomorrow morning.
Thanks, guys. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.